Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask for help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela lizwe letu na bantu balo, umasili ukulungu kupondo letu. Kosi sikalela I Afrika, pina bantwana bayo, kokelo in kokeli zayo, iniki ukolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Order, please. Good afternoon, members, guests in the gallery. Welcome to the sitting. I just need to apologize for the fact that I am recovering from a really bad cold, so my voice might not resonate as well as I would want it to, but please bear with me. And we'll just allow the chief, the leader on this side to settle down, and then we'll proceed. Thank you. We now proceed, members, with the business of the day, and the first business is interpellations as printed on the question paper. And the first interpellation, I recognize the Honourable, the Premier. Premier?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. There is a lot of information to get through in the course of this interpellation. I will do my very best. In terms of the disaster declarations, two classifications were made, the first being a hydrological disaster, where 4 municipalities have been declared, namely the City of Cape Town, B2 local municipality, Knysna local municipality, and Theewaterskloof local municipality. In the case of the agricultural disaster incident, the following areas were affected: Central Karoo and the West Coast districts, Cape Winelands and Eden district municipalities. To date, all of the required assessments and verifications were completed by the National Disaster Management Centre and await final confirmation. While dealing with the challenges associated with the drought, the province experienced a severe storm which was further compounded by the Knysna fires. In light of the disaster declaration and the severe storms and fire damage, the Provincial Cabinet allocated 75 million rand in emergency relief to various departments in support of specific projects. In addition, the Department of Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning and the Department of Local Government have been tasked with driving most of the drought-related projects in the province. To this end, the Department of Local Government reprioritised 10.6 million rand, which was earmarked for governance and service delivery-related projects, towards drought relief projects. This funding was allocated towards the following types of projects: equipping and refurbishing boreholes, water source development projects, the augmentation of bulk water supply, and the appointment of groundwater specialists. The criteria used to prioritise support money placed emphasis on drought-related projects. As such, the 10.6 million was reallocated towards drought projects. In the process, projects that were prioritised as less critical in nature were placed on hold and will be considered for support should further funding become available. The affected functional areas of reprioritisation are on the governance and service delivery projects within the municipal infrastructure environment. The Department of Local Government is in the process of reviewing other existing governance projects and plans with a view to allocating support funding towards drought priorities. An amount of 15 million rand of the 75 million rand emergency funding was allocated to the Department of Local Government. The 15 million rand was used for the aerial firefighting in the Eden district and drought relief projects. The Department of Agriculture has undertaken similar reprioritisation with plans and budgets towards providing, amongst others, fodder to farmers. The prioritisation of funds towards water augmentation and drought interventions have impacted on existing plans and programs to the extent that some of these must be kept in abeyance. Provincial government officials are also meeting with the National Treasury to highlight the impact of the droughts and disasters on programs, plans and budgets. Have I still got time of my 2 minutes, Speaker?
Yes.
I have. With regards to the...
Sorry, Prem, I'll just check in with the table time, please. Your time has expired.
I thought so. I
thank
looked at
you.
my watch. Thank you.
I see the Honourable Yankee. So the table staff will be guiding me regarding time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the Premier for this response on this interpellation. But I want to thank you even more, Premier, on your response, because I'm so happy that you are back in the House. I really want to thank you for that. Welcome back. Because after you have declared this disaster, you are hardly here. So I really am happy to engage in this. Now, Honourable Premier.
Order, please, members. Can I just, if you could take your seat, Honourable Yankee.
Thank you.
If I could request that we have order, interjections are allowed. There seemed to be a sound challenge, which we're working with. But Honourable Yankee, if I could ask you kindly address the chair, please, if you don't mind, in delivering your statement. Thank you.
I don't mind. I have no problem looking at you. I think I will do that.
Thank you, Honourable Yankee. I shall in turn look at you too.
Thank you. I think all I was saying, just to thank the Premier, that it's one thing to declare disaster, it's just another to take care of your own declaration. I must make the point that in terms of Section 57 of the Disaster Management Act, when you declared that disaster, that you needed to ensure that the prioritized plans are done in the APP. I've listened to your input. It's very clear that from the point when we asked Treasury and the Department, none of them were able to give us any changes in terms of that. Today, you are coming here, nothing also from you. All we are hearing is this thing is being done months after that. So that's very peculiar in terms of that. It says to me this best-run government of the Western Cape has done a declaration, but it's not ready to drive and implement that. It's also very clear, Honourable Premier, that besides the 75 million which you have broken down and those municipalities, I'm getting less of, in terms of the question, the implications of that. Let me share with you, the City of Cape Town financially said to us they are going to be spending 2 billion currently and 1.3 in the medium. This is just the City of Cape Town. You are not talking about the other 5 municipalities that you have said are under high risk. These are the financial implications that she's not telling us anything about. I gather from you, and I want you to confirm this. So you are saying to us, your declaration has not impacted whatsoever on our APPs, on those prioritized plans, because you have said Bokorol in terms of that. Nothing whatsoever. And then...
Order, please. Honourable Yankee, kindly take your seat.
Why is he rising? Just ask him.
Order, please. Honourable Yankee, take your seat, please.
Well, it's already been pointed out by the LRGB that expletive by the honourable member is totally unwarranted and unparliamentary.
Honourable, how many speakers do we have in the House today? Please. Honourable Yankee, your comment around Bogerol is considered to be unparliamentary.
You consider that? Yeah. You or they?
No, I'm saying it's considered to be Bogerol. So I'm asking you, would you kindly withdraw the Bogerol statement, please? Thank you.
Honourable Speaker, the Premier has done absolutely nothing. Zilch. I will withdraw the Bogerol, but the fact remains.
Thank you.
sy het niks gedoen nie.
Okay, take your seat, please. Honourable Lekker, let me just caution you around your comments. Chief Whip.
Yes, Speaker, the rules are very clear on these matters, is that when the Speaker rules on a matter, there is
done.
no discussion about it, you simply withdraw. This
Thank you.
grandstanding is completely unparliamentary.
So let's, there seems to be a fair amount of tension in the room around who wants to be the speaker. Let's be very clear that in terms of Rule 41, it is my duty to maintain, well, I don't know who's fighting between Honourable Lekker and whoever. Let's just, members, let's remain calm. Let's bring some dignity and decorum to this discussion so we can continue. You may proceed, Honourable Yankee. Honourable Yankee, Magaka, if there's anything you'd like to tell me, you can do so after the sitting. Thank you.
Honourable Speaker, I'm interested to hear what the Premier would say on this issue. The point I'm making is that the Premier was only grandstanding in declaring this disaster, and we've received nothing in terms of actions from herself as a Premier and the two departments that are critical, which is Treasury and also local government. But she's ahead of this government.
Your time has expired. Please take your seat. Thank you. I see the Honourable the Premier.
I'm very glad I had the opportunity to make the Honourable Yankee happy, Madam Speaker, and he made me very happy by the normal kind of response that I get from the ANC, which shows that they haven't listened to anything I said in my first response, but they are just reading from a pre-prepared paper. And he says, we have done absolutely nothing except all the things that I said were being done in the first part of my answer, which is absolutely absurd. And if he has questions about Cape Town's budget, he must please ask his Leader of the Opposition there to put them to the Mayor. I can't answer questions for the Mayor and about other people's budgets, but the disaster declaration does give me a lot of power to reprioritize them. And I will tell you what I have done. I will continue telling you what I have done and hope that I can get through all of this. And I've obviously done it in direct coordination and cooperation with all the MECs and the ministers in this government, and with the cooperation of local government through the Premier's Coordinating Forum, who all got together and all discussed this in depth and all agreed on the way forward. Let's start with agriculture, because that's obviously very profoundly hit, Madam Speaker. With regards to the Department of Agriculture, I'm informed that the drought and disaster declaration has had a dramatic impact, both internally on the department's planned programs, as well as externally in terms of the economy and associated implications. It was expected that the impact of climate change will affect the disaster intensity and spread across the province. The fire season at the beginning of the year highlighted the unpredictability of the severity and volumes of disaster events. Once the officials in the department work on several disasters simultaneously within one financial year without additional capacity, it always places planned targets under major pressure. For 2015-16 and 2016-17, the Department of Agriculture has reprioritized its budget and has made 80.03 million available for drought relief assistance from its budget. Although some areas did get rain during the current winter, the dam levels are still very low and water shortages may be experienced during the next summer should we not get additional rain for what remains of the winter.
Your time has expired. Thank you. Honourable Yankee.
I put it to you, Honourable Premier, that as a result of your inaction as the provincial government, the inaction of the City of Cape Town and other municipalities, today you have added the burden on the taxpayers. If the City of Cape Town, oh, listen, don't frown, listen to me. It's going to help you to listen to this. If the City of Cape Town is going to spend 2 billion currently and an added 1.3 billion going, that money is going to be absorbed from the taxpayers' money because they are now going to increase rates and all other things. Now, this is as a result of a government that was forewarned years ago about the drought and did nothing. So today, so I want to put it to you, and I want you to take responsibility when you respond back, that when the tariff increases, tariff is going to be increased in the city of Cape Town and other municipalities, it is as a result of a DA government that did not do anything on the planning. Because you're speaking about climate change. Climate change tells you about how to do things in a forward planning manner. You did nothing about that. Let me take you through again. The Department of Local Government visited respective municipalities, and they categorized the municipalities, your high risk, medium, and low. There are about 4 high risk municipalities of Beaufort West. High risk meaning that they have got less than 90 days of water as we speak. Beaufort West, Bito, Kandaland, Knysna. Now, this provincial government, and all of us, you've done nothing. We are going to be pushed, and you are going to heighten emergency because you've not done anything. 90 days, in 90 days' time, which are already in the middle of that, you would have no water in Beaufort West. You would have no water in Kandaland. You would have no water in Bito and in Knysna.
Time has expired. Kindly take your seat, please. I see Honourable Yankee. Kindly take your seat. I see the Honourable Mitchell. Sorry. Honourable Yankee, kindly manage yourself, please.
Yes, can you
Thank
please,
you.
can the Honourable Yankee please withdraw that, because it's unparliamentary. I am an honourable member like he is. Honourable Speaker, first and foremost, the drought declaration in the Western Cape Province is merely an administrative task collated and submitted by the Premier to the National Drought Emergency Fund to release additional capital for use to combat the effects of the drought as a freak incident. The funds released to the province are additional to the approved departmental budgets, and because the funds may not be enough, certain planned programs may have to be reprioritized.
Order, please.
Madam Speaker, the Honourable D. Yankee is going on about Beaufort West, but he fails to inform this House who governed Beaufort West and where we inherited the mess that we are in. So in his response, can he please inform the House who governed Beaufort West until the other day? Madam Speaker, this is precisely why the National Drought Emergency Fund exists, to ensure that service delivery continues without a natural disaster eating away at the provincial budget. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to commend the Premier of the Western Cape for taking the leadership to fixing the national ANC's mess, and it's their responsibility.
Time has expired,
I thank
Honourable
you.
Mitchell. Thank you.
Point. Let me rise on that point. I can
Have
never.
I recognized
Oh,
you,
okay,
or are you
okay.
just rising? Sorry, don't run ahead of yourself, please, Honourable Yankee.
No,
I
thank
now
you.
recognize you. It is your
Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you.
Let me rise on that point. The Disaster Management Act and the National Disaster, Treasury nationally, Department of COGTA, is not going to release money when you have no plans tabled in front of them. And we hear in this House, they are not ready for that. So you can never even start blaming the slowness and all of that, boss. You must start with your Premier, the Honourable Premier here, and all of his department, that they are not doing their work. They are busy gallivanting the world, traveling, instead of focusing on the issues of drought and disaster in this province. So you're not going to have just manna coming from heaven, people doing what you're supposed to do yourself as the Premier of this province, because you just don't have time to be hands-on, to govern this province. It seems that you have already taken a decision that says, it's my last years, let me tour the world. That's what we're hearing. But let me go back to this particular issue, Honourable Speaker, and make the point that we are going to watch the space for as long as all what you do is a PR exercise to stand up on the Table Mountain and say this is what we're going to do, and yet you know you've not done anything about that. We're going to be watching the space and we're going to be monitoring and making yourself very accountable on these issues. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Jantjie. I now recognise the Honourable the Premier.
Yes.
Please do manage yourself, Honourable Jantjie. It's early in the day for you to be misbehaving.
Now, he's a leadership contest is coming up in the party of the Honourable, the opposition, and they're all
please.
campaigning here. The Honourable Jantjie will recall that there are two components to his question. The first is about implications. Now, there are many, many implications, and as I said at the beginning, this is going to be a long answer because there are many implications, and I have not yet got to the second part, which is whether a decision has already been taken to review the strategic plans and annual performance plans. Because you asked it in two questions in a very short time, and I'm going through the very comprehensive answers that there are. So now, Madam Speaker, the City of Cape Town has reprioritised its budgets very substantially, but I can't speak for the Mayor. She held a major press conference in which she declared all of their plans and put everything on the table, including the fact that they had a very clear water plan, but the problem was that it was premised on what the meteorologists told them would be the minimum amount of rainfall, and indeed that amount has been halved since that prediction was made, so they were sitting with a situation that was almost impossible to plan for. Secondly, when we inherited the complete mess of the ANC government in Beaufort West, and we realized they were running out of water without any plans at all, what we immediately did was look at black water recycling, and we're at the point now where they run a program which I think is rather unfortunately called From the Toilet to the Tap, but apparently that water is highly drinkable and there is nothing wrong with it. So in fact, this government has saved the people of Beaufort West from a genuine crisis. But I was still speaking on the implications for the Department of Agriculture. The real crisis lies with the animal farmers who do not have fodder to feed their animals. Despite the reduction in stock numbers, they are still required to keep their breeding stock alive to conserve their genetic material. Being winter, there's very little growth taking place in the areas that did get some rain, and the estimate is that animals will have to be supported for at least an additional 5 months. That has profound implications. The funding spent to date supported 1,674 smallholder and 2,471 commercial farmers with fodder in the declared drought municipalities Witzenberg, Drakenstein, Kannaland, Oudtshoorn, and district municipalities, the West Coast and Beaufort West.
Your time has
All
expired.
right, well, I've got a whole thesis of what we've done.
Honourable Jantjie, if you need to speak to the Premier, you do it through the chair, please. You are acting like a naughty little boy today. Please. I know it might be seen to be, you may address me, but your behaviour is bordering on that, of becoming disruptive.
Honourable Speaker, I withdraw the little boy naughty comment.
You are not a naughty little boy, Honourable Jantjie.
Thank
I
you.
shall withdraw that unapologetically. That concludes the first interpellation. We're all grown up now. We're going to move to interpellation number 2. And I see the Honourable, the Minister, Minister Marais.
Thank you, Honourable Lekker, for this interpellation. Our department aims to create socially inclusive and tolerant communities through the initiatives or programs implemented. It is therefore important to note that social inclusion and cultural tolerance requires the commitment and cooperation of all spheres of government and a whole of society approach. The work executed by our department has a demographic reach across all communities, which ranges from arts, culture, language, heritage, museums, libraries, archives, and sport, all of which functions and co-functions to foster social inclusion and cultural tolerance. Through our programs, we strive to be inclusive and embrace diversity whilst creating an understanding of and respect for all practices within our realm. To achieving this end, we have rolled out our oral history initiative in the Metro, which aims to promote cultural tolerance through creating a platform for untold personal histories to be shared with the wider community and documented in our archives, libraries and museums to be preserved for present and future generations. Experiences are not exclusive to one community, and we recognize that communities are not homogeneous, but the effect of past experiences has similar impacts on the landscape of the Western Cape. Therefore, libraries play a significant role as the social hubs and spaces of safety in our communities. In the area in question, the Western Cape Library Service supports Eerste Rivier Library, Macassar Library, Melton Rose Library, and Mufuleni Library. The National Heritage Resource Act mandates the Provincial Heritage Resources Authority to manage cultural places of significance. That forms part of the national estate. In this regard, my department assisted members of the Kai Korana cultural community, which has members in the Happy Valley and Eerste Rivier areas, in capacitating the community to understand the process to be followed for the declaration of heritage objects. The entire responsibility Heritage Western Cape ensures the identification, protection, promotion and management of heritage resources of significance is given due to consideration and attention to ensure it gives effect to the intentions of the National Heritage Resource Act. Further, the department makes available cultural facilities under our management to embrace the diverse cultures of our province through the programs they execute. In particular, from the Eerste Rivier community, we accommodated groups that varied from the International Quran Academy Muslim community to primary schools.
Thank you, Minister. I see the Honourable Lecker.
Let me first thank the input from the MEC. But MEC, if you zoom down to the community of Happy Valley, 70% of the community is unemployed. In that same community, there are no facilities at all. And I would like to check, in the spirit of bringing and fostering good relations, is there perhaps any plans, taking into account that it's a previously farming community, are there plans of perhaps bringing a mobile library into the area? Because indeed, for them to go into Mfuleni or Kleinvlei or Eerste Rivier, they need to get a taxi. And if they are unemployed, most of them, wouldn't it be an opportunity for your department to bring those facilities closer, even if it's a mobile library, where learners will get an opportunity to experience what it is to make use of a library, where they'll be able to exchange in terms of their cultural activities?
Thank you. I see the Honourable Leonard Max.
Speaker, I just want to say to the Honourable Member Lecker, it was at all times, all relevant times, this DA-led government of the Western Cape's aim to create an open, a fair, and opportune society. And we all believe, to continue to believe, in building inclusive communities. Now, it's a pity that the Honourable Member, Honourable Speaker, focused on one area, but this DA-led government focused on the broader communities. We are not tunnel vision, and with this limited budget. So, to show commitment to this cause, the Department of DKS, Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport, actually advised the Minister to establish the Western Cape Cultural Commission and advised the Minister on the preservation, promotion and development of arts and culture in our communities. Now, this commission is established by people chosen from the communities. It shows you the communities took ownership of their future. On top of that, 181 mod centers was established by the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport to encourage people to involve, create opportunities for youngsters to participate in these programs. Now, then we make an effort to understand and appreciate each other's differences, it will definitely help to achieve, us to achieve an inclusive and cohesive society. And therefore, I urge Member Lecker to encourage
Order, please.
to
Honourable
encourage
Lecker.
people in these areas to participate in these activities and to seize the opportunities created by the GA-led government of the Western Cape under the competent leadership of Minister Andrew Murray.
Honourable Max, thank you. Your time has expired. May I, members, may I just, Honourable Lecker, if you need to pose a question to the person, the idea would be to ask it through the chair, not to do the dialogue. And Honourable Dianke, at the cost of being called something little again, please manage yourself. I now recognise the Honourable Lecker.
No, thank you, Speaker. Hi, Matsukezo. Perhaps for one to understand exactly what it means to be inclusive, one needs to go into the area and be with the people and amongst the people. And if you're looking at the community of Happy Valley, it's an inclusive community where you find people from different cultures interacting with one another. But that's neither here nor there. It is important, though, to understand that this provincial government, PSG, speaks to issues of safety. It also directly speaks to making sure that our communities are healthy. And further, understanding that communities, for them to be living in a happy environment, we need to increase wellness and attacking social ills. And therefore, primary to that, Chair, would be making sure that there are job opportunities created for people in order for them to be able to have a meaningful partnership with the various government departments, including all of government departments. And therefore, Chair, it brings us to a question and an understanding that for us to be able to attack social ills, we need to make sure that all of government departments work together. And I would like to check from the Office of the Ministry as to if there are any opportunities, particularly job opportunities, that were created through the EPWP for the community of Happy Valley. And I maintain once again that to speak about Happy Valley, it becomes a very concern because it's a marginalized community, which at all times we need to speak for all those communities that have not been catered for. I thank you.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Cavido.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, Honourable fellow members, support staff, members of the media, and our distinguished guests in the gallery. Honourable Speaker, it is becoming increasingly important that community members must play an increased role in taking ownership of their spaces and take advantage of the inclusive programs made available through the Western Cape government. I would like to congratulate Minister Andrew Murray and the department for a focus on expanding sports, the arts, and cultural programs to the Happy Valley, East River, and surrounding communities. Honourable Speaker, let's also not focus the significant roles libraries play as social hubs and points of access to various economic opportunities in these areas. Not only have these libraries helped expand various economic opportunities to the people in these areas, but the library has more effect on reading than a phonics check. Being able to have a wide range of books that appeal to different interests will do more to drive literacy than some of the government's strategies. I thank you.
Thank you. I now see the Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Speaker. Lastly, Speaker, I'm very much interested in understanding when you speaking of members of Happy Valley who are forming part of any activities that are taking place from this department, I would want to check, has there been any activities, cultural activities, that have been explored into the community directly by this department? And if there is a speaker, can we get some information as to how has this been rolled out into that very same community, understanding the material conditions of those people of Happy Valley?
Thank you. I see the Honourable, the Minister, Minister Marais.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you for bringing it under my attention about the culture activities in Happy Valley. I will provide the information. I'll get the information. I don't have it with me, but will provide it to you. And then with the libraries, with pleasure, we will look into that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes interpellation 2. We now move to interpellation 3. I see the Honourable, the Minister of Finance, Minister Mayor.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you for this interpellation. I know the Honourable Member has asked this question with a particular approach, and I will deal extensively with that approach. Firstly, the Provincial Treasury annually assesses via the local government MTEC process a municipal budget as stipulated in Chapter 4 of the Local Government Municipal Finance Management Act 56 of 2003, as well as the Municipal Budgeting and Reporting Guidelines Regulation Chapter 5 of the Local Government Municipal Systems Act 32 of 2000 as amended. Honourable Speaker, that's the legislative framework. Let me now deal with the principles involved in this question. Interaction during the LGM-TEC process focus on whether the draft municipal budgets comply with the 3 broad areas of principles. Firstly, responsiveness, whether the draft budget is appropriately responsive to the economic growth objectives and the socio-economic needs of the community as measured in the socio-economic profile of the local government as prioritized in the IDP and the local economic development strategy of the institution. The second principle, Madam Speaker, in assessing the budget is the sustainability, which assesses whether the municipality has sufficient revenue and adequate corporate stability to fund and deliver its budget. And thirdly, the credibility, whether the municipality can execute and deliver on its budget realistically and its ability to spend. Madam Speaker, in the context of sustainability, we've developed a particular model to assess, firstly, the corporate governance sustainability. Secondly, we are also assessing the fiscal sustainability of the municipality. And thirdly, we assess the economic sustainability. And lastly, we assess the public value sustainability when we assess the budget. Now, in terms of the real actual assessment, Madam Speaker, the tariff increase proposed by the city were assessed in terms of the budget guidelines and inflationary limits set by the National Treasury and guidelines set by other regulatory bodies such as NERSA. Both the Provincial Treasury and the National Treasury provided extensive commentary on the City of Cape Town's budget and associated documents. The 2017-18 tariff increases were assessed against the parameters in the context of the entire city's budget and associated documents, and this we followed a very holistic approach. The tariff increases for electricity and property rates were below the Consumer Price Index, the CPI projections for the City of Cape Town, the current drought conditions and water restrictions implemented originally a level 3B at the time and currently a level 5 in the City of Cape Town, which impacted on the tariff increases for water and sanitation.
Thank you, Minister Mayor. Your time has expired. Thank you. I see the Honourable Yankee.
Baie dankie, Speaker. Jammer, I can give you my time because he has not answered the question.
You speak to the Chief.
Thank you very much for the response so far. I cannot falter that response. I like those 3 elements: credibility, sustainability, responsiveness. All what he has said they have provided comprehensive commentary to the City of Cape Town. The question was, did you support the tariff increase in the City of Cape Town? Hy hardloop weg. Jy moenie hol weg asseblief. Kom terug na die punt. Die punt is, as had die LER saam met u departement die increase ondersteun en die staat Kaapstad. Kom op daai punt. He doesn't come to that point, and therefore, Honourable Speaker, may I proceed so that you don't disturb
Before
me?
you proceed, no, I'm not. You indicated that the minister is running away.
Yeah.
He had run out of time. He wasn't running away.
should have gone straight to the
He ran
point.
out of time. Thank you. Proceed.
Please add on my time, Honourable Speaker, please. You see, the city of Cape Town is fast making it unaffordable for working class and ordinary people to live. This is evident in the ongoing municipality-induced sharp hikes for rates, tariffs, taxes, and services, especially the hidden and double taxation on services that are adding to this dilemma. This year, Cape Town went behind the back of the ratepayers or residents. In spite of that comprehensive commentary that you gave them, to request from the national regulator, NESA, for an increase in electricity prices above the cap set for municipalities. This shows quite clearly that Cape Town's DA municipality is pushing the limits in order to fill the city's coffers at the expense of the mainly middle-class people. It is precisely the complaint by many middle-class residents that Cape Town, under the DA, taxes them out of their home, but do not render the services in return. Here, many cite potholes and bad roads as an example. In fact, in many instances, the residents must establish a municipality within a municipality called an improvement district, be loaded with more tax in order to pay for the services they already paid the municipality to deliver but do not get. It includes safety, maintenance, cleaning, upkeep of plants and trees, and general tasks the municipality should have taken care of. Cape Town has in the past even loaded things like sewage with surcharges, which was illegal, and it had to be regularized to proceed with the collection thereof. So the minister, instead of answering in this house and telling what his department did, he's going around. I would like him to come back and answer. I pause.
I'm watching you pause, and I'm watching what's playing out here. It resembles something that's not called parley. I now recognize the Honourable Member Joseph.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for the response on the question. Municipalities is a separate sphere of government. They have the authority to increase the tariffs on an annual basis. Member Dianki, as a previous MSc, should know that. The process starts with officials preparing proposals based on economic research, which affects the metro, employment, unemployment, social circumstances of the residents, and affordability. This means that the socio-economic situation of each and every resident is taken into consideration before this process is undertaken. This process is followed by a concept budget, which is then followed by public participation process, which is very important.
Honourable Joseph, kindly take your seat, please. I just need to call Minister Order and Member Lecker, Minister Fritz and Member Lecker to order, please. They are engaging in some kind of distracting behavior. Could I request, please, members? You may proceed, Member Joseph. I must apologize for the interruption.
Thank you, Speaker. This process is then followed. It is followed by a financial budget proposal voted in by the Council after comments were received by the public is taken into account, and the municipal acts and bylaws is applied. This process is followed, and of course it ensures that service delivery will continue. That is the primary task of the City of Cape Town. And the table of proposed increases are as follows. There was a 5% increase in property rates in the 17-18 year, 3.34% in electricity, 6.51% in refuse, and 8.32% in disposal. These are average increases which indicate the only area that comes in is the water tariffs due to the situation as sketched by the Premier and yourself, which in certain level and tariffs is applied for. This member who asked this question, Speaker, is playing politics with people. The public has responded to the City of Cape Town in terms of the advert. They have responded, they've made their comments, and I'm sure the city will take that into account going forward. I thank you.
Honourable Dankie.
Honourable Speaker.
I'm recognizing you to speak, but I'm also going to address you in terms of your interjections and how close you are to Rule 44 if you continue to persist.
As
in
long
that
as you watch
manner.
my time,
But
Honourable
so now
Speaker.
you may proceed.
Now I'm starting.
You are starting now, but please
Thank you.
manage yourself.
Where municipalities go outside of the norm, Treasury at provincial and national level must be consulted or buy into such increases. The fact that the escalations went through and are unchallenged means only one thing. Treasury at this level had to support it. So, Honorable MEC Mayor, please tell us, did they, the City of Cape Town, defy you as provincial government, perhaps as part of your factions, because that city is led by Mayor Dalil. So they did not do what the comprehensive commentary you gave them, because they did not do that. Or tell this House that their increases have our own blessings. We did that. What is even more shameful is how Deputy Mayor, the real Mayor of Cape Town, Ian Nelson, has told concerned business people about steep upsurges of tariffs and rates, that if they don't like it, listen to this, they know what to do. Move away. That is out of the Cape colony of no hope, basically. But let us look at the rates and taxes outside of the Cape Metro. In many cases, the rates for an average middle-class household in Cape Town is up to double and 3 times as much in other so-called DA-governed areas like Napier, Grabo, and Hibiscus, the Central Karoo, and even the Southern Cape. Let us look at the other metros, where the DA is now suddenly in control, thanks to an unholy relationship with the EFF and UDM. Like in Nelson Mandela, where rates and tariffs shot up and is now double what it was. The base rates are now the highest in the country. This is where the DA rules, the best run governments. So we're sharing those kind of examples. And people are told to shut up and pay. They have to pay, period. This is what this DA government does to the ordinary citizens in this province and other parts of this country.
Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thanks for the Honourable Jankie. He's indeed right. The taxpayers are being taxed out of their home. But let me tell you the reasons there. As you know, the National Department of Water and Sanitation is bankrupt. In fact, they are literally leaking billions. And that's where the City of Cape Town and Western Cape government had to make other shortfall, example in Clanwilliam, where money that was supposed to be paid on maintenance is now being to make shortfall by the provincial and city governments. So if the honourable members really genuine about this matter, you will agree with us and march to us to Parliament for Minister Mokonyane to resign. Similarly with the electricity matters, the minister would know that the billions looted by the Guptas pointed through his friends, the Honourable Zuma, we now, the city and several other municipalities, now have to make up that shortfall by increased taxes due to the fact that the Honourable President is appointed, or the dishonourable appointed the Guptas as they know. So if the member is really honest with himself, you will march with us to demand the resignation of Minister Gupta, Gigaba and Minister Mokonyane, who's literally bankrupt the city. So Zuma is taxing the middle class out of their homes by their behavior and their mismanagement of their departments. And if you're really sincere, you will agree with us. That's where the problem lies.
Thank you, Honourable Mackenzie.
Baie dankie, Speaker. Baie dankie, Speaker. Daai was 'n baie swak poging van daai lid.
Order, please,
Daai was 'n
members.
baie swak poging. Hy het probeer om 'n antwoord te gee, maar hy's baie verkeerd. Hy's oral. Die punt is, maar ek respekteer vir hom, want hy het iets gedoen wat die LER nie kon doen nie. To admit, he admitted on behalf of the DA that yes, we did this, and then he gave other reasons. At least I respect him for that admission, which is very good. The point, and I hope now the MEC, when he closes, he will come to the answer. Tell the people of the Western Cape, tell the citizens of this province, of this city, that the load of increased tariffs and rates, the DA government has supported that. This province and the city of Cape Town are in cahoots to give them hell in terms of their pockets. Please tell this house.
Order, please, members. Before we begin, the display of posters we know is allowed, but if it becomes disruptive to proceedings, I'm going to have to call you to order. So I see posters, I can't see the content. It's not coming my way, but let's just not reduce the decorum of the House. I now recognize the Honourable the Minister, Minister Mayor. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much. I think what this motion does is that this motion, or rather the interpellation by the Honourable Member Yankee.
Order, please, Honourable Yankee.
The ANC councillors in the city of Cape Town must note that Richard Yankee wants to become provincial leader, has just moved a motion of no confidence in them. That is why he's bringing the interpellation here. He has no confidence in the councillors in the city of Cape Town. I also agree that corruption caused by the ANC is now affecting the local government equitable share, and state theft is coming home to roost in many different places. I think the Honourable Member was a MEC for local government.
Please, Honourable Yankee.
He was a member of this cabinet. He should know how local government operates, but sadly, it seems he has failed that particular responsibility. But I am particularly happy to report, he asked me, he simply doesn't understand statecraft. He asked me, did I support it? The budget was tabled in that House. I'm not a member of that House, so that's the place where you support the budget. I made some extensive comments on the budget. Some of those were technical, some of those were taken into consideration. That's the place where you support or not support. I'm not a member of a council. If he wants to become a councillor, we can redeploy him so that he can make a statement that side. I think we should, the Honourable Leader of the official opposition should redeploy Richard Yankee, because he has just reduced himself now to becoming a councillor. That's the place where you support or not support a particular tariff increase. But let me give you what his government has said about this increases. The national government, the national treasury of Richard Yankee, they have indicated that they are very happy with the agreement of this tariff increases. But I think we need a rather political debate, and that debate should take place in that chamber where we're going to redeploy Richard Yankee.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Members, that concludes interpellations. Honourable Yankee, at the cost of feeling that I'm picking on you, your constant interjections are bringing you very close to Rule 44. And if you continue in this way, I'm going to have to ask you to withdraw from the chamber if you're not going to manage yourself. So I am giving you a fair warning, and similarly to any other member who does a running commentary when it comes to interjections. I'm not threatening or intimidating. I'm cautioning you. Let's work with each other. Honourable Magaka, we are now going to deal with questions on the question paper, and you will have an opportunity to speak in just a minute. So, if we may, I will now recognise the Honourable the Premier.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Speaker. This is a question about 2 trips in 4 parts each, so I will respond in that way. A. Firstly, I had a trip to Ghana, and the reasons were to address the opening session of the 5th African Network for Evidence to Action in Disability conference. Now, that is an African network that deals with disability issues, and because South Africa, and especially the Western Cape, is so comparatively advanced in dealing with disability issues, we feel it's very important to put that issue on the agenda across the continent, because many people with disabilities are neglected and marginalized in too many countries. Secondly, the reason was to promote the Western Cape as a preferred trade, tourism and investment promotion destination in line with the Western Cape government's international relations strategy, which highlights Africa as a key geographical area for investment, trade and tourism. And of all the African countries at the moment, Ghana is showing very great promise. They've just had a democratic election in which the old government was replaced, and they aim to become the most business-friendly and fastest-growing country in Africa, and it makes a lot of sense for us to make contact with them who have a growing economy, whereas what we need most of all is to turn our economy around and enable it to grow. So of all the countries in Africa, we thought that was the best one to target, as it proved to be. B, the delegation included myself, and I was away for 6 days. Dr. Laureen Platsky, the Deputy Director General of Strategic Programs, including International Relations, who was away for 6 days. Mr. Bertie Arifdin, who is the Deputy Director of Protocol in the department, and he led an advanced team, and he was away for 11 days. And it really works to have an advanced team because you can get the program really well planned, you don't waste any time, the routes are traveled so you know how long it's going to take, where you can save time, because these days are really packed and you've got to make sure that you get all of your appointments into the time available. And then Ms. El Mkikela, who is the ASD International Relations Department of the Premier, and she was also away with the advanced team for 11 days. Then the costs breakdown based on the submission. The total cost of the visit for 4 people for the Western Cape's participation in the Ghana mission were 388,643 rand and 80 cents. And this was the cost for 4 Western Cape government delegates for a period of between 6 and 11 days, 2 each, and includes an amount of 57,360 rand we donated to AfriNeed South Africa for their participation in the Disability Conference. Then the gains and impact. Firstly, there was promotion of the importance and learning about the latest developments on the African continent in relation to the rights and programs of people with disabilities. It was a very, very important discussion, and we met the minister responsible and we compared notes and insights, and we hope to continue supporting the work on disability across this continent. 2, promotion of the Western Cape as a preferred trade, tourism and investment destination, and encouraging increased inter-African trade, tourism and investment through reinforcement of political support. It was very interesting how many South African companies are already in Ghana and how much investment has already happened there. And the ties between our 2 countries are strong but can be much stronger. So as I will describe later, we brought a strong investment delegation and we had a very major seminar on this particular issue with very positive results. Then the third gain and impact was exposing the Western Cape companies to the opportunities available in the Ghanaian market. And as I said, 18 companies participated in the mission, which is very significant. 5 companies that took part in the mission have so far signed declarations totaling 112 million rand. So that is a huge return on investment of just over 380,000, which included the donation to AfriNeed. And 1 company signed an outward foreign direct investment declaration to the value of 35 million rand. A total of 35 jobs are to be created and 63 retained over the next 5 years. So we felt that that was very well worthwhile. I also had the opportunity there of meeting senior political leaders. Not only Otumfo, who is the king, and who is a very wise and well-respected monarch, but equally mayors and the equivalent of regional governors. And I was fascinated to hear how they are driving economic growth up and unemployment down with some considerable success. And perhaps one of the most fascinating discussions that I had of all was how they have managed to really reverse the HIV/AIDS pandemic with such marvelous success and with a fraction of the resources that we have. So it was a very important learning experience, and believe me, Ghana is on the up and up. I met a couple of their cabinet ministers from education to trade and industry, and I could not have been more impressed with their insight, their vision, their leadership capacity, and their articulacy. And at one of our seminars, the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry was the keynote speaker. And I thought to myself, if the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry is this good, I wonder what the actual minister is like. And that was very, very impressive. Then Vietnam and Thailand. The reasons: Thailand and Vietnam are two of the fastest growing economies in the world. In fact, all the economic predictions are, Madam Speaker, that by 2020, Vietnam will be the fastest growing economy in the world. And they have had 5-year plans on a regular basis, and I'm amazed to see, I spoke to several people's committees, as they call them there, how they achieve their plans and reach their plans. And they are now on 8% economic growth, and the plan is by next year to be on 9% economic growth, and the year after that to be on 10% economic growth. And they spell out very, very clearly plans to achieve that. So both Thailand and Vietnam are members of the rapidly growing economic region of ASEAN countries, which will have a middle class of more than 200 million people by 2030. Now, you've got to understand what having a middle class of 200 million people will mean. They are all people who come into a market where they can develop taste for wine, for our export products, for our fruit, and crucially, for tourism. When people are in the middle class and the exchange rate favors their currency as much as the ASEAN countries' exchange rate favors them, they're going to come on holiday to places where they get good value for money. And as you know, tourism is one of the things that really drives job creation in our province. And what I learned very much there was that other countries are doing a fantastic job of promoting their industries, their destinations, and their products. So while the Western Cape is number 2 in those countries for the fruits we produce, we're only number 6 as far as our wines are concerned. And the country that beats us consistently is Chile. Why? Because they have a constant presence there. And that is one of the reasons, it's not the only reason, but I learned just how much other countries who compete with us in the global marketplace know the 200 people in the middle class has to be prepared for, and that market has to be tapped very early on. Because once people get loyal to a brand, they often stick with that brand. And South Africa has to be there competing. In particular, the Western Cape government delegation focused on attending and opening the South African displays at the Food Hotel Thailand exhibition to showcase Western Cape products, including halal products. Now, it was very nice because we had our wines being tasted there and our halal products together being exhibited there. And we even had export products such as the capsule for cleaning coffee machines, getting really broad-based interest from the entire industry. And I'm delighted to say that we won gold in the superior wine category twice. Now, when all of the industry is there, the hotels and other industries are there at the show, and it's a huge show, and it comes to the judging and people are all standing around, they hear Molyneux wines and Van Leeuwen wines winning the top accolades in superior wine quality, and people say, well, you know, we need to look at these wines. And especially with the exchange rate, it is very, very favorable for them to do so at the moment. Then we promoted tourism, trade and investment opportunities in the Western Cape in collaboration with the South African embassies in Bangkok, Hanoi, with the Vietnamese Chamber of Commerce, Bangkok and Hanoi, obviously they're in 2 different countries, and with the Vietnamese Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Hanoi and Da Nang. by co-hosting tourism, trade and investment seminars, and all of them were packed, Madam Speaker, where they know very little about South Africa. Specifically, we highlighted relevant opportunities in the Western Cape, supported by sectoral presentations, trade and investment statistics, answering questions from importers, distributors, tour operators, and potential investors, and they were all there. And to provide an overview of requirements for foreign investors and support services provided by Wesgro, including highlighting key Kulisa projects such as wine and halal promotion, as well as the opening of the Cape Investor Centre. And it was a very fortuitous time to be there because two things had just happened. Firstly, 2 days before I was there in Hanoi, Minister Maite Nkwane Mashabane, the Minister of Foreign Affairs or International Relations, had been there, and she had made a statement that there is room to improve trade between South Africa and Vietnam to the tune of $2 billion. And she'd been on television saying that. She'd met the Prime Minister of Vietnam to discuss that issue. And it was really very important that right in the slipstream, and while people were still talking about that, we were there presenting our products and how we could start fulfilling that target that our National Minister of International Relations has put on the table. We wanted to, so it was lovely that we could then say, okay, right now as well, we're opening the Cape Investor Centre, and the acting Premier, Minister Alan Windey, was there, and we really could get the best possible promotion of the Cape Investment Centre, which is a one-stop shop for all investors at these seminars, with all the contact details, the names and everything. Thirdly, to provide a platform to meet local companies that have been or are interested in trading, making investments, shooting films, and increasing tourism in the South African economy, with a focus on promoting the Western Cape as an investment destination of choice. Fourthly, to leverage off the recently undertaken high-level political visits between South Africa and Vietnam. And it wasn't only Minister Maite Nkwane Mashabane, it was also Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa who have been there, and it's very useful to fortify those links. In the ASEAN countries, it's important to link with politicians and to build that kind of confidence over time. And most certainly, many people raised to me the fact that they had seen Deputy President Ramaphosa before. They had also seen Minister Nkwane Mashabane, and now they were seeing us, and you could just see this interaction developing and the bonds solidifying. And then we also highlighted and advanced the export trade opportunities, particularly for agricultural products in Thailand and Vietnam. And then crucially, in Thailand, we visited the Eastern Economic Corridor. Now, the Eastern Economic Corridor is going to be one of the fastest growing regions in the world. It's being expertly managed, really well promoted. The incentives packages are extremely interesting and innovative. And it is an excellent model for our Western Economic Corridor that we are seeking to develop in the West Coast. We had a fascinating day of seminar around the Eastern Economic Corridor, and in fact, the new honorary consul for South Africa in that part of Thailand, Mr. MacDonald, was there with great enthusiasm to build these links between the two economic corridors. We also wanted to support Fruit SA in further opening market access for fruit in general, but oranges and grapes in particular for the short term. Currently, there are phytosanitary issues. Our national department, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, needs a little bit of encouragement to get on with that, because there are very, very big opportunities for those two export products in that market. And we also prepared for Wesgro to organize a delegation of Western Cape businesses to attend the Food and Hotel Vietnam exhibition in 2019. Exactly the same kind of exhibition with all the hoteliers and all the tourism industry people that we had in Bangkok, we now want to also have in Vietnam, because these are the growing tourism markets with disposable income. Then learning about research and programs to reduce alcohol harms in Vietnam and Thailand as part of the Global Alcohol Policy Alliance, and not to mention HIV/AIDS. Madam Speaker, I am so impressed at the extent to which countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and Ghana manage behavior change in their societies. It is quite extraordinary. Thailand is known as the sex capital of the world. People go to Thailand, I'm afraid, for sex tourism often. Yet they have brought their AIDS rates right down. And they could explain to me the strategy and how they achieved it. And I was very, very impressed. Again, on the fraction of the resources that we have. Exactly the same in Vietnam. I couldn't believe it. In Vietnam, according to the calculation I did, because they gave me all the statistics, 0.03% of that population is HIV positive. It is quite extraordinary. Then we learnt about the extensive and successful programs of the Thai Association for Cooperative Education with Thai Universities of Technology. Now, this is a major breakthrough. In the past, we've often gone to Germany to learn about duale Ausbildung. That is a system in which people study and work at the same time. And we have based our apprenticeship game changer largely on that model. What I learned in Thailand was how they adapted the German and Swiss and Austrian model for their circumstances and why they did so. And it's given me very important insights. I wrote up all of the notes, and we are going to be tailoring our apprenticeship game changer accordingly. A very, very important set of lessons. And then we also visited a major global plant to see how work is integrated with learning, where graduates are ready to move straight into the workplace, and the potential for partnerships with the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Now, this was one of the most interesting meetings because they explained to us how they partner with academic institutions and students. And it was delightful to see a Mr. Tato Poe, who comes from the Free State in South Africa, as an intern there, as an apprentice there, and he gave us a brilliant exposition of his research that has led to a mechanism that will enable the testers of the technology to be tested themselves for the reliability of the outcome. And they are very, very impressed with the quality of the students that we're sending them from South Africa, and it was lovely to see Mr. Poe there. It was also important to learn, and I think this will be an interesting thing for Minister Schaefer, which I must still share with her, is the extent of the focus on English in Ghana, in Thailand, and in Vietnam. In Vietnam, children are required to take English for 2 hours per day. Because they say if we want to grow this economy and become an international player, we have to speak the language of the international economy. And that focus on English, and the number of our teachers and young people who one meets in both Thailand and Vietnam on their English learning programs and teaching English as a foreign language is a really insightful thing to see. The delegation was myself, I was away for 11 days, Dr. Platsky again, away for 11 days, Mr. Hadley Blake, the Deputy Director Protocol in the Department of the Premier, and he and an advanced team of one other person, Ms. Patum Buddha, was away for 18 days. The total cost of the visit for the official delegation was 518,000 rand, 436 rand and 32 cents for 4 people for between 11 to 18 days. Now you want to talk about the gains and the impacts?
Order, please. Order, members. A question. Order, please.
Well, I'm terribly sorry. You asked a question about 3 destinations in 4 categories.
Premier,
so you are now going to get the answer.
Premier, kindly take your seat. Members, if I, no, you're not finished. If I may address you, a question, I'm really not worried who's fighting in which faction right now. A question was posed and the Premier is answering the question. I think it would only be respectful to acknowledge the response in order for the follow-ups. It might seem detailed, but let us be patient and let's reduce the buzz that's going on. Something's been triggered and there's in and out and movement. Let's work together. Premier, you may proceed. I'm asking the House for cooperation.
Thank you very much. Sorry?
Honourable Olivier, you are going to get very close to Rule 44 very shortly too. You've asked a question. Premier, you may proceed with your response.
Thank you very much. In fact, this is the brief response. I've edited it very substantially, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Olivier, I will welcome it if you would cooperate. Thank you.
The gains and the impact. Let's take a look at Thailand. Westgrove facilitated and coordinated a delegation of 5 Western Cape exporters and stakeholders to attend the Food and Halal Thailand Trade Exhibition in Bangkok. I opened the SA Food and Hotel Pavilion at that exhibition, and we attended the awards to the South African winemakers, and I did media interviews and photos and TV opportunities. I was on television 4 times during the visit to Thailand and Vietnam, and that's very important because you can talk about South Africa, you can talk about, yeah. I was on television 4 times, twice in Vietnam, twice in Thailand, talking about South Africa, talking about our fruit and wines and our tourism and other things, and allaying people's fears because they have a perception of South Africa that I tried to allay very much. Then we met 50 potential Thai tourism, trade and investment companies because they attended the Tourism, Trade and Investment Seminar, and we had a long question and answer session, which was very useful. Then we have commitments on hosting joint investment awareness workshops with the Thai Bureau of Investment. I also met Thai Airlines, and they sent a very senior delegation to come and meet us. The Vice President of Thai Airlines came to speak to us because we are looking at, in their next round of prioritization, trying to secure a direct route from Bangkok to Cape Town, because it's a very good holiday destination. Currently, they get 80,000 South African tourists every year, and we only get 8,000 people from Thailand coming, and there really is scope to balance that out.
Can you kindly take a seat, Honourable Magaka? You're raising on a point of order.
Yes, on a point of order, Speaker. I just want to check if you think that addressing to you, Speaker, the Premier is responding on the questions, because the questions are clear here. The third question is, the last question is talking about what were the impact. I know she has answered the other 3, but the specific question on number 4D, what were the impact and gains of each visit? And to me, she's not doing that. She's just telling us about how she enjoyed herself there. Of which is not I don't think it's in the interest of this city.
Thank you. I think you're raising a debating point. If you look at the very first part, what were the reasons for international trips? The Premier is providing, as far as I can hear, a comprehensive response to all 4 parts of your question. Sadly, you are going to have to listen to it to get to the end where the Premier deals with the impact. I cannot control the response, but in terms of the 4 points that are raised, there is certainly relevance in terms of how the Premier is responding. Thank you. Honourable Magaka, the Premier is responding.
Well, I'm talking about the impact because this is a significant commitment to facilitate
Honourable Magaka,
Western Cape exporters
it is your question
into Thailand and ASEAN. If they don't think that appearing on television is an impact, let me tell them they are quite wrong. Because when you get on television, you speak about how wonderful South Africa is, how people can come here for affordable holidays, how people can drink our wonderful affordable wines, etc., etc. You're putting us on the map and that's an impact. Then a Thai TV drama comprising 12 series is going to be shot in Cape Town, and we were very pleased to be able to liaise with the people to make sure that happens, because we get a lot of revenue from being a location for films. And of course, as soon as there are films on location in Cape Town, it creates that kind of big impact around creating tourist awareness and a destination in its own right. And then the air access unit I've already spoken about, and then the extraordinary benefits we had from the Eastern Economic Corridor. So I won't go into that again. Vietnam was particularly amazing. We had 6 Western Cape exporters and stakeholders in the wine, fruit juices, as well as provided a platform for 5 Western Cape exporters, rooibos tea, honey, coffee, cleaning capsules, chocolates, dried fruit, confectionery products, and canned fruits to access and be exposed to the potential in the Vietnamese market. 80 potential Vietnamese tourism, trade and investment companies at the Tourism, Trade and Investment Seminar, all very interested in promoting South Africa. I've just mentioned the Vietnam Air, so that was also important. The commitment undertaken by the Vietnam Ministry of Trade to visit South Africa in March to inspect our oranges and grapes. And that is very, very important, because once they have come here, and we will create and do a good program for them, and they've looked at our oranges and grapes, I'm sure we will open that market for our oranges and grapes as well. And lastly, you know, I went to Da Nang. Now, anyone of roughly my age will remember Da Nang from the news in the late 1960s, early 70s. It was a place that was nearly bombed off the map by the Americans. They used Agent Orange there. It was a terrible, terrible situation. And today, that city has resurrected itself and is a real focus for renewal, for tourism, for trade, and for development. And all of this has happened through roughly an open market, where everyone drives a business of one kind or another, very low unemployment, and the biggest irony of all is that they call themselves the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, but they're the dead opposite. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Magaka first.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I want to ask a follow-up question. How do the Premier reconcile her attendance to this African Network Disability? How does she reconcile that with the firing of a disabled worker in her public administration in the Department of Public Works, whom the court ruled in his favor, who has been working here for 5 years, but today...
Order. Honourable Magaka, just take your seat. Honourable Chief Whip. Order. Please come to order.
Secondly,
Order.
it is not even vaguely relevant to the original question.
Yes, I'm listening very carefully, Honourable Magaka. I couldn't see the relation, but get to the point. Ask the question relating to as a supplementary to question number 1. Is that related to question 1?
Let me remind the input of the Premier so that we can understand the relationship. The Premier attended an African Network of Disability. And she said she was invited because of the role they have played in this government in that area. Now, I'm asking a follow-up question. How does she reconcile her department, which is the Public Works Department, which has fired an employee who is disabled, and the court ruled in his favor, but the same department which is supposed to be very sympathetic to disabled people.
Thank you, Member Magaka. You must get to the point. Can I just say, as a general rule, a guideline, the supplementary questions must be in concise form, first of all. Secondly, it must relate to the original question or to the reply. Now, I didn't listen to the full reply, but I'll take it that there's a correlation between the reply of the Premier and what you've just asked. Premier, you're at liberty to reply to that question if you want to.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I must disagree with you. I don't think there is any connection. But if you have ruled that there is, I'm certainly prepared to respect your ruling. I never ever get involved in disciplinary cases, so I don't know at all what case the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition is referring to. He must rather put that case to Minister Donald Grant, and his department can get the information required in the reply. But being passionate about issues related to disability doesn't mean to say, as the Honourable Magaka seems to imply, that that exempts people with disabilities from any rules in this government. Not at all.
Thank you, Premier. I see the Honourable Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, can the Premier inform this House if you use this opportunity to assure international investors that investing in the Western Cape is an investment for corruption-free governance under this DA-led administration, which is in direct contrast to the national ANC government?
The Honourable Mitchell raises a very important point. The perception of South Africa internationally is really bad at the moment. People see us as a haven for corruption. They see us as a place of violent crime. They see us as a place that has abandoned President Mandela's legacy. And the country that was once the poster child for a transition to democracy is now being seen as a country to avoid because of the problems generated nationally. We do feature on television there, but usually for all the wrong reasons. And I had to spend a long time talking to people, especially the tourism promoters, about whether they could safely send people to South Africa.
Thank you. We can move on to the follow-up question. Honourable Mitchell, I'll see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. To the Premier, is it true that the Western Cape is home to the country's fastest growing economy, with the lowest unemployment rate and the smallest number of discouraged work seekers due to the international relations built by this government?
Honourable Premier, again, that is a question which may relate to the original question or the reply, maybe. Premier, if you want to respond.
The reason that I think it does relate is because he's saying, what were the benefits? Was this a benefit?
Order.
Was this a benefit? So it's a completely valid question. I think if it wasn't for the perception that international investors had of the Western Cape, our economic crisis would be much greater and our unemployment would be much worse. It is a really tough job to tell people that South Africa is not what they now perceive it to be. And that it's very important that we undertake that job. Now, it is quite amazing that given the amount of urbanization we've had in the Western Cape, we still have the lowest unemployment and the fastest growing economy. But that is nothing for us to feel particularly proud about, because if we want to deal with unemployment, we have to grow at Vietnamese rates. And I learned a lot about what growing at Vietnamese rates of growth requires. And that puts us in a good position as far as we have any discretion at all in terms of economic policy to do what we can here, but also to persuade South Africans that while we continue having a corrupt, dysfunctional, and rent-seeking national government, there's going to be no hope for growth and jobs.
Honourable Magaka, the last opportunity.
Speaker, could I am correct, I'm just asking to the Premier, am I correct that your visit to this, or your attendance to this African Network of Disability, your presence there was just hypocrisy and propaganda in the light that in terms of the reports, including the statistics were provided by Statistics South Africa, that this government has not met the requirements for a long time of the employment of the disabled people.
Thank you, Member. Honourable Premier.
No, I absolutely do not think it shows any hypocrisy on my part at all, because I don't agree with the premise of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. And we have done an enormous amount in regard to disability. We have a disability desk that is doing quite extraordinary work, and we are very committed to the empowerment of people with disabilities. And indeed, I went to share a lot of the things that we do, and a lot of the things we can do because we have a better institutional base than many of these countries, but we mustn't think for a moment that we are going to stay ahead. Those countries have recognized what they need to do to become the best in Africa, and boy, are they doing it, and we better stop resting on our laurels.
Thank you. We move on to the next question. Question 3 standing over. Honourable Simmers to Minister Bredell. Minister Bredell, are you ready for that?
Dankie agbare Speaker. Baie dankie aan die agbare lid vir die vraag. SALGA verrig hoegenaamd geen impakstudies in die munisipaliteite en het nog nooit dit gedoen nie. Die tweede gedeelte, SALGA het 'n totale bedrag van R68.468.841 uit die provinsiale se lidmaatskapheffing geallokeer tydens die 2017-18 finansiële jaar. Die provinsiale begroting vir die Weskaap kantoor is gelykstaande aan R35.078.063 en die balans van R33.390.778 word aan die nasionale kantoor as heffings of heffingsgelde betaal. Die derde gedeelte, dat SALGA het 10 werksgroepbyeenkomste met 'n verteenwoordiger van elke munisipaliteit per werkgroep. Die 10 werksgroepe byeenkomste vind plaas kwartaalliks en beloop gemiddeld 3 tot 4 ure per dag oor 'n tydperk van 4 dae. 'n Bywoningstoelaag van R962 sonder BTW word aan elke individu betaal. Daarby dek SALGA die vervoer en verblyfkoste. Indien die byeenkoms verder as 'n beperkte kilometers buite die stad Kaapstad gehou word, vergoed SALGA die raadslede direk. Dankie.
No follow-up questions. Honourable Simmers.
Eerstens, ek wil die minister bedank vir sy deursigtige en antwoord. Ek wil net vir die minister net vra dat u het nog gereageer op punt nommer 2, die koste van hierdie kom sê dit maar aktiwiteit wat SALGA verrig. Maar gegee die kwynende fiskale omgewing waarin ons funksioneer op plaaslike regeringsvlak, minister, voel u nie dat hierdie bydraes as ook hierdie dae wat verlore gaan, het 'n massiewe impak veral op ons kleiner landelike munisipaliteite op die oomblik nie?
Minister Bredell.
Agbare Deputy Speaker en die agbare lid, ek stem 100% saam. Ek dink die syfers is ongesond. As jy R68 miljoen inbetaal en ek het hier 35 kom terug, dan is daar ernstige vraag daaroor. Dis die eerste een. Die tweede een, ek is ongemaklik oor die dagtoelaag, want raadslede kry salaris om hulle werk te doen. Dit is so goed, ek word betaal om 'n minmek vergadering by te woon. En ek dink as staande komitee en myself moet ons hierdie ding debatteer. Ons moet vir SALGA nooi om 'n tafel. Ek dink ons almal het die verantwoordelikheid om die beste te doen vir die mense daar buite. En ons moet die vraag ook speel en vra aan SALGA hulle rol wat hulle moet speel, die rol wat die provinsie speel, die rol wat nasionaal speel. Ons kan nie nog 'n regering sweer bekostig nie. So ons moet hierdie goed bymekaar trek. Ek is baie bekommerd dat ons raadslede te veel ure buite hulle rade spandeer en te min ure daar binne. Dankie.
Thank you. We then proceed to the next question. New questions. Question 2, Honourable Joseph to Dr. Meyer. Agbare Minister Meyer.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Honourable Member Joseph for this question. The Western Cape government currently operates a large number of transversal systems, administering its corporate services, supply chain management, human resource management, financial management, payroll, and business intelligence. Many of these systems, however, are based on aging technologies. Furthermore, these systems are not fully integrated and there are duplicated functionalities across these systems. In aid to the above-mentioned challenges, the National Treasury has embarked on an initiative to replace these transversal systems with an integrated financial management system. The IFMS program is a joint initiative between the National Department of the National Treasury, Department of Public Service and Administration, and CITA, the State Information Agency, to modernize the management and execution of the back office processes in public service, excluding public entities, local government and intelligence agencies in the following domains: financial management, human resource management, payroll management, supply chain management, and business intelligence for the above domains. The national government first approved the development of the IFMS on the 14th of September 2005. Given the challenges experienced in implementing this project, the National Cabinet endorsed an amendment to the project scope, implementation time, and the budget for this project on 18 November 2013. The National Treasury has concluded a contract to purchase software licenses for the Integrated Financial Management System program with Oracle Corporations. This decision brings government closer to the fully implementing the original resolution to replace the legacy systems countrywide. To this effect, the National Treasury has since issued a number of Treasury practice notes. The latest also in National Treasury Instruction number 5 of 2017-18, which effectively communicate a moratorium placed on government departments in acquiring enterprise resource program solutions, that is the system software of a service, that might result in the duplication of the functionality of the IFMS models covering the domains as I mentioned. It has been asserted that by the National Treasury that the project may be implemented only in the year 2021. May I add, when there is a new government in South Africa, financially here in the Leeds sites. However, the timelines are constantly moved, which creates a level of uncertainty. The Western Cape government was selected as a lead site for the eventual implementation of the IFMS. It is the intention of the Western Cape government to participate in the IFMS in order for that we can capitalize on the latest technological advancements, provided it is free from corruption. In the Western Cape government, we also face unique challenges in the inefficiency in the legacy systems now. We are aware of the promise that was made about the IFMS, which was meant to resolve these challenges, but the Western Cape government is concerned about the length and the duration, and only many of these issues that were raised, given the long history of this particular project. We have therefore considered three options. One, to do nothing and wait for the IFMS until it eventually arrives. Option two, to procure a new system to deal with the challenges of the legacy system. Or option three, evergreen as we call it, to upgrade the legacy system by doing an incremental implementation or improvements on the legacy systems. Well, the Western Cape Provincial top management had a long discussion about these particular options as early as last week on the 12th of September and agreed that doing nothing or procuring a new system may prove to be too costly for the province, and thus has endorsed that it evergreen or update the current legacy system. Now, in practice, Honourable Deputy Speaker, what this implies is that the evergreen legacy systems, to complement it with the modern and up-to-date technologies in order to enhance the capability of the legacy systems, it is the view of the Western Cape Government to make use of the existing investment made by the National Treasury to the Oracle Corporation by using some of the Oracle models available and then to migrate it into the legacy systems to actually mitigate some of the weaknesses that is current in the current system. So that is what the approach will be. We will not wait for it to eventually arrive, but we will also not purchase new because it is too costly. So we go for a middle-of-the-road system. We say there are current weaknesses in the legacy systems. The Oracle has certain modules that we can capitalize and migrate it into the legacy systems, which will not come at a big cost. So that is what we're going to do. We think it's much more functional in terms of that. So that is our particular response, Honourable Member Joseph.
Achtbare Joseph.
Yeah. Thank you, Minister, for the question, for the answer to the question. I want to make a point that the cost of a pilot project, what is the time frame? Because pilot projects in national government or initiated by them just sometimes goes on, and it would have cost implications for the Western Cape. So my question would be the time frame. Then my other point related to that would be the protection of government, Western Cape government property while this pilot project is in running. And I would ask the Minister also to...
Honourable Joseph, you're entitled to one follow-up question. You've already slipped in two there. I'll allow you the two. Minister, you may respond to that.
Speaker, yes, we were selected as a pilot study. Pilot studies normally have a duration of 3 years. We are in this province particularly keen to pilot things before we roll out comprehensively. We have learned from the National Traffic Information System, or NATIS, where the national government had a national system which they didn't pilot. They rolled it out nationally, and it was a national disaster. The Western Cape, we don't roll out any mega systems like IFMS, because these are systems that can, if anything goes wrong, it will have a huge impact on data security and data stability within the financial systems. One of my key priorities in this government is to protect the financial integrity of our financial system. But also, more importantly, Honourable Deputy Speaker, given the question of the Honourable Member Joseph, this government has also recently had tabled before us a data security study, and also currently busy also with developing a digital strategy, and some of this documentation will soon become before the Cabinet, because we have realized that one of the top 10 risks, as indicated by the South African Institute of Risk Managers, is data security. So we are concerned about it, but we will follow an incremental approach through a pilot study, because that way you can fine-tune the sort of things that you want to rectify before you roll out massively. I think we have opted for the best solution. We have looked at what we call a cost-benefit analysis, and the option that we have selected is in the best interest of the Western Cape government.
Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In the light of all this corruption that is under investigation throughout the country, I would like to ask the Minister to ensure and investigate that the Guptas are not part of behind the scene with this pilot site. Thank you.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I know that in one of the previous meetings that I attended, the Independent Electoral Commission is currently considering a new IT system to run the elections in 2019. I am also concerned that the Guptas is interested in that ICT contract. And I am also very worried, because we do not want to give the Guptas any access to the ICT network of this government, because that will give the Guptas access to the payroll. It will give the Guptas access to your pension, Honourable Member Dakmo, and we certainly do not want the Guptas to access Lekker's pension, or we certainly do not want the Guptas to enter the Persal system. We also do not want the Guptas through the ICT system to access the government employees pension fund and the staff here sitting in Parliament. We want to make sure that our systems and the integrity of our financial systems protect the salary of our staff members. We have got 80,000 staff members. We have 1 million civil servants, and certainly we know that they invest their pension in the government employee pension fund through the PIC, Public Investment Corporation. And Honourable Member Joseph, we want to ensure through a proper system, and that's why we are looking clear that the Guptas don't touch the ICT system of the government financial information systems, because Honourable Member Olivier just told me I must make sure that his pension is secured.
Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to ask a follow-up question, and I would like to ask MEC Mayor as the Minister of Finance and ultimately responsible for procurement, if he can give this House a commitment that no company linked to the Guptas during his term of office have ever received an ICT contract of any nature.
Honourable Minister, if you can respond to that.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as a seasoned Deputy Speaker, you know that this is a new question, and I would very much appreciate a question from the member in writing.
Honourable Dugmore, you can use the last opportunity, but as a seasoned Deputy Speaker, I would say to the Minister that the onus is in your court to decide whether you want to respond to it or not. Mr. Dugmore, you may.
A quick point of order. The reality is that in the response of the MEC, he started talking about the Guptas and so on, and I think therefore invited a question, a follow-up question of that nature.
That may be so, but in the last instance, the Minister's response is his discretion. He can decide if he wants to respond and in which way he wants to respond. So the Minister has already responded to that. Can we then move on to the next question? There's another fourth opportunity if you want to use it.
Yes, I'd just like, is it last follow-up question?
Yes, it's the last one.
Okay. I would like to ask the MEC in regard to the answers that he has given to the question of the Honourable Joseph, who together with me also serves the Hessequa constituency and chairs the Finance Committee, whether he could indicate to us what are the costs associated with implementing the IFMS and whether any consultants are involved in implementing this program or whether it is completely in-house by officials of the relevant department.
Minister, if you want to respond to that, you're free.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, there was a comprehensive presentation that was made to the Standing Committee by my officials in this particular regard. This is a national project, and obviously the National Department, the National Treasury, make use of consultants in terms of the rollout of this particular project.
We then move on to the next question, which is question 3, Honourable Max to Minister Marais. I see Minister Marais.
Vir die vraag wat die 16 prioriteitskodes betref, het die Direktoraat Sportontwikkeling van die Departement van Kultuursake en Sport bystand verleen met die beleiding van skoolsportstrukture om versoenbaar te wees met die federasiestrukture op distriks- en provinsiale vlak. 'n Aantal vergaderings het plaasgevind wat die volgende benadruk is. Skoolsportstrukture moet in lyn gebring word met en rapporteer aan die onderskeie federasiestrukture. En tweedens, die aanstelling van tegniese beamptes bly die verantwoordelikheid van die federasiestrukture. 'n Meer intieme werksverhouding met die Wes-Kaapse Provinsiale Sportkonfederasie, waarin provinsiale federasiestrukture geaffilieer word, is gevestig met gereelde kommunikasie en interaksie wat plaasvind. Die laaste interaksie het op Saterdag 19 Augustus 2017 plaasgevind, waar die Departement van Kultuursake en Sport deur sy departementshoof, hoofdirekteur sport en ontspanning, direkteur sportontwikkeling, sowel as die adjunkdirekteur skolesport verteenwoordig is. 2 beamptes van die departement, naamlik van die Direktoraat Sportbevordering en Direktoraat Sportontwikkeling, dien ook op die struktuur se uitvoerende bestuur en in ex officio hoedanigheid. Daarbenewens het die Provinciale Skoolsportwinkel op Vrydag 15 en Saterdag 16 September 2017 plaasgevind. Afgevaardigd van sport se 16 prioriteitskodes het hierdie werkswinkel bygewoon, terwyl die Wes-Kaapse provinsiale struktuur en 4 van hulle 6 distriksportrade ook teenwoordig was. By hierdie werkswinkel is die volgende tersaaklike onderwerpe bespreek en 'n besluit aangaande elk van die onderwerpe is gemaak en goedgekeur. Die interskoolligas, die volgende vlak deelname, die skakel tussen skoolsportkodes en hulle betrokke federasies en die rol van die Wes-Kaapse Provinsiale Sportkonfederasie en distriksportrade. Baie dankie.
Dis 'n opvolgvraag, Honourable Olivier.
Thank you, Honourable Max. Deputy Speaker, just to check with the Minister that this relationship of school sport and sports federation is at this stage an engagement in terms of processes moving forward. is there any time frame as to when school sport will be in line with your sports federations?
Baie dankie, agbare member Olivier. Daar is op die oomblik is hulle besig om die MOU tussen nasionaal se onderwysdepartement en ons departement te hersien en ons het nie 'n spesifieke tydlyn nie, dit hang af van ons nasionale minister, maar dit is in die proses.
Second follow-up, Honourable Dugmo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Ek wil graag vir die LEK vra in terme van die verhouding tussen skole sport en die federasies as sulks, of daar vordering gemaak word met die voorstel dat daar op 'n sekere dag van die week sport gespeel word. Ons weet byvoorbeeld dat daar was gepraat van 'n Woensdag as die dag wanneer die verskillende sporte geoefen word, sodat daar is 'n roetine wat ontwikkel onder die skole. So kan ek vra, is daar 'n gesamentlike posisie deur die skole en die federasies dat byvoorbeeld skole in die week, skoolsport in die week gebeur op 'n sekere dag of nie?
Baie dankie. Nie op die oomblik nie. Skole kan self besluit watter dag wil hulle sport beoefen, maar ons naskoolse programme staan baie in vir ons sportprogramme in die middag. En ek wil net sê dat die nasionale minister het dit as sy doelwit gestel om sport in skole weer terug te bring, maar ons het nog nie weer enige terugvoer van daai doelwit gekry nie.
Honourable Dugmo.
Ek wil net vra of die agbare LEK lid van die uitvoerende komitee raad. Okay. But a provincial minister by any other name. Okay. That's what the Constitution actually says, the provincial Constitution. But I think sometimes we have a problem because there are provisions of the Constitution like the Environmental Commissioner as well as the Children's Commission which are never implemented. So, okay. But I would like to ask the MEC, whether the federations have a particular focus on historically disadvantaged schools where the facilities at those particular schools don't lend themselves to playing particular sports pursued by these federations, and if the Minister can indicate if there's any further progress on supporting the Glendale High School, who has an initiative to build a world-class athletic stadium at the school for the use of the cluster of schools and the communities around Mitchells Plain.
Agbare minister, dit klink nou effens 'n nuwe vraag. U is welkom om te antwoord as u kan.
Ja, ekskuus tog ja, ons is baie gestel daarop om in ons skole wat in onbarmhartige omstandighede is, wel programme te hê en ons werk goed saam met die federasies. En op hierdie stadium is die Glenville is in 'n proses, maar ons het werklik op hierdie stadium geen befondsing nie, maar ons praat nog steeds met mekaar.
Die laaste geleentheid, Honourable Dugmo.
I would just like to ask, ek wil eintlik vra vir die MEC. As sy verkies word as die voorsitter van die DA of as sy nie gekies word, sal sy bereid wees om saam met ons met die minister van sport 'n vergadering te hou sodat wat u gesê het in terme van die feit dat hy 'n aankondiging gemaak oor die sport, maar niks het dan verder gebeur. Sal u bereid wees as u gekies word of nie om saam met ons daai vergadering te
You've made
reël?
your political point, but the question is raised to the minister in her executive capacity. Minister, you may respond.
Indien u verkies word as leier, dan kan ons praat.
We move on to the next question, which is question 4. Honourable Diana to Minister Brodel.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you to the member for the question. The Gamka Dam only contributes to 15% of the water source of the town of Beaufort West. The bulk of the water is abstracted from boreholes, which contribute 69% of the water supply and 16% by the reclamation plant, which purify the wastewater treatment plants effluent to potable water standards. This is sufficient to supply in the restricted water demands in the short term. The following plans are in place to address the water security. The implementation of the water restrictions, level 5, are already effective as the Provincial Gazette 7811, issued under the Section 41(1) of the Disaster Management Act 2002. Pressure management is implemented in each zone of the network. Public awareness campaigns are ongoing. Pamphlets are supplied and articles are updated and are given weekly out to the newspapers and radio stations. Additional efforts are planned for public awareness to increase the impact. The public swimming pools will not be opened for the summer. All operations and repairs of water supply are on high priority. In other words, that any pipe leaks and repairs is getting immediate attention. And so forth. All sewer networks, operations and repairs are on high priority. All sewer backlogs is repaired immediately, or leakages is repaired immediately to enable flow to wastewater treatment plants. The current emergency relief projects in implementation, the construction of the Klein-Hans River pipeline from the reclamation plant to the new balancing reservoir to increase the water storage capacity. The project's value at 9 million rand, of which 7.7 million rand is funded by MIC, and the Western Cape Department of Local Government supplied the additional 1.3 million rand to complete the project. Contractors have been appointed for equipping of the existing 3 boreholes, and the Western Cape government or local government supplied the 2 million rand to complete that project. The municipality has also applied for funding for the equipment of another 5 boreholes from National Disaster Management Centre. This project will ensure water security in the medium term. And then the reclamation plant purifies wastewater treatment plants effluent to potable water standards. This plant was commissioned in January 2011 and has been highly effective since in operation and is often referred to as a flagship for the province. I thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, my problem is on the development. Hence, we know that in Beaufortwes there's that shortage of water, and also it is earmarked as a high-risk Beaufortwes municipality. Now, my problem is, can the minister just share with us which initiatives have you in plan for the developments which will take place in Beaufortwes, understanding that in Beaufortwes is high rate of unemployment. There are 2, I'm talking about 2 developments, the Karoo uranium project and also the fracking. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Yeah, Deputy Speaker, I've, as much detail as possible, explain exactly what we're busy doing. The balls and so forth, and we equip it, and we're busy with the reclamation plant and so forth. We must remember we don't sit only with Beaufort West. The whole Western Cape is now declared a disaster area, and so we're working all over. The big uranium kind of projects and the fracking kind of projects, obviously, government will look into that. It's going to be a national competency to make the call. Provincial departments of environmental affairs, local government will be part of the whole process of commenting authority, of putting ideas forward. Obviously, if you look at something like fracking, water is a big issue, but also sand, also the road infrastructure. The whole fact, will we find gas, won't we find gas? But that's another process, it's another project and so forth. And we keep a close eye, and the municipality is involved in all these processes.
Thank you. Can I just say that the time for questions has already expired, but we will finish this question. So if there's a further follow-up, we can have another follow-up. Otherwise, we dispose of questions. Are we then done with the questions? We then move on to questions to the Premier without notice. And the first questioner is also the Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Premier, considering that the household of the Honorable Premier gets preferential treatment with 3 sources of water during this disaster drought at the expense of taxpayers, including from the municipality, a stream as well as a well point borehole, what are you, Honorable Premier, what are you going to do to repay some of the expenses for what you are benefiting of?
Honourable Premier.
Deputy Speaker, there is no preferential treatment given to the Premier. If there is plentiful surface water, the benefit of harvesting it and using it for all purposes falls to the citizens of Cape Town, who then have more municipal water that they can use that isn't being drained away, so to speak, by the Premier and her residents.
Honourable Diana, do you want to follow up?
As Cape Town City now closes down fresh springs and streams to the poor and public ahead of day 0, which is also threatening places like Beaufort West, your Canaland, Bito and Neisner, will the Honourable Premier allow people to come and collect at Leeuwenhof some of wonderfully purified water for their use?
Premier.
The bottom line, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that when this Premier moves out of Leeuwenhof, she's not going to be taking with her the water purifier. It's going to stay on Leeuwenhof, which is a property of the Department of Public Works and will benefit all future people who work and live there. It is also hugely important for us when we have access to water that would otherwise run into the sea, that we use that water. It would be indeed scandalous if the Premier's residence was allowed to continue using municipal water while so much water rushes through that property and into the sea, as it does off Table Mountain everywhere. So the bottom line is that there is a water point at the gate from which water, as I understand it, is currently being purified. I don't know where that is. I haven't seen it before. I didn't even know it was being installed. I will find out about the feasibility of people coming to that point and getting water from that, because as everybody knows, I have tried to share the facilities of Leeuwenhof as much as I can with organizations for the disabled, with organizations that create jobs for people, and a range of other things. And of course, they obviously use the facilities there as well, and the toilets and the taps, etc. So I will certainly find out about that, because there is a pool of fresh water just outside the premises. And if it is feasible and if it is purified, personally, I would feel very inclined to say yes.
Honourable Diana, your last opportunity.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Will the Honourable Premier declare the added privileges of incubancy she enjoys at Leeuwenhof in the light of her being accused of not setting an example by not saving enough water in an area under severe restriction?
I think it would be fair to say that there aren't many people who put as much effort into saving water for their personal use as me and my family. To the point that people are wondering whether they can sit next to me anymore. We are unbelievably frugal with water use, and I have also the assurance of the household manager, Mrs. Hajira Mohammed, and the horticulturalist, that water use is restricted to a minimum, that the garden hasn't been irrigated since March, that when it is irrigated, it is only done with natural surface water and the borehole water, and the pool has been covered and is filled with natural surface water or borehole water. JoJo tanks have been purchased so that not even the washing machines have to run on municipal water. And we are trying to work for a change in the bylaw of the City of Cape Town to ensure that, in fact, I'm able to get Leeuwenhof off the grid altogether.
Thank you. Next question, Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Premier, given that the rollout of broadband is one of the Department of the Premier's focus areas, can you explain to this House how is it going to roll out the broadband to ensure that the residents of the Western Cape got access to internet? Thank you.
It's going well, Honourable Max, through the Deputy Speaker, but there have been some quite serious hiccups that I had really not anticipated. I've learned to expect the unexpected, but in this case, it is very, very sad to see the extent of theft and vandalization of cables that have no resale value whatsoever. And any moving part of whatever sort in the infrastructure for broadband tends to get stolen in certain areas. And more than that, when our contractors are installing the broadband cables, they often get held up and robbed of everything they have got, to the point that some of them refuse to work in certain areas anymore. And then we have to put Wi-Fi into those areas without proper infrastructure, which makes the connectivity much less reliable. Now, this is the kind of thing that boggles one's mind when one's been in a place like Thailand or Vietnam or Ghana. Because there, poor people don't destroy each other's infrastructure. They see it as a stepping stone to improving people's lives. There is profound poverty in all of those countries. The differences are many, and I would love to write about them, but if I do write about them, it'll be closed down because South Africans don't like honest debate on tough issues. Really? Yes, really. You really believe that? Yes, I really believe that.
Honourable Jankie, it's not a time for dialogue now, please.
So those were the unexpected hiccups. Because broadband doesn't really get full traction without an intensive e-culture and good maintenance, there have been other hiccups in those areas as well. But by and large, we have now connected over 1,800 sites, was the latest statistic that I saw. And there are 178 Wi-Fi hotspot points and what they call points of presence, or POPs, across the province. And those have been prioritized in 23 towns across the Western Cape. Then we are moving on to phase 2 of the broadband project, which means upping the 10 megs of access to 100 megs at each point. And in 2022, the plan has it that we should start the third phase, which will up it to 1 gigabyte per site. So this is a very ambitious plan. It's very costly, but the entire world is moving into a digital space. And if we don't do it, especially our poor communities will suffer, because if the government doesn't provide the connectivity, the private sector definitely won't. Thank you.
Honourable Max.
Premier, thank you for that reply. Are there any specific focus areas on which you concentrate, and if so, why those particular areas? Thank you.
I would have liked, Deputy Speaker, we obviously wanted to concentrate on the poorest areas. But as I say, those installations got disrupted by thugs and criminals. And in many places, when programs are just about to start, they can't start because the cables have been stolen. So we do an enormous amount of work to just try and keep the system functional. And the irony is that where there is such disruption of the system, the poor get poorer and go further and further behind, while others soar ahead. I am thinking about it because it's a terrible, terrible problem. It's a terrible, terrible problem. So in almost all the small towns from Beaufort West to Worcester, we have prioritized those areas. There are 23 of them. I don't know them off by heart, but it's most of them because there are 30 local authorities in the Western Cape, so it's by far the majority of them. And now most people should be able to get access to one or other of the 178 free Wi-Fi hotspots.
Honourable Max, your last opportunity.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Premier, the department did a lot of work to expand and make access available to our communities in the Western Cape. But how do you think that all these efforts and access to this internet, how will it empower our residents in the Western Cape? Thank you.
In some countries of the world, internet access has now come to be seen as a human right because so much of the world depends on it, and so much of access to knowledge depends on it. I believe that it will soon legitimately be seen as a human right and that we have to get ahead of the game. In the knowledge economy of the future, information literacy and digital literacy are going to be non-negotiable skills that everyone is going to have. Our residents will be incredibly empowered by much more efficient systems, for example, in hospitals, with much more efficient road monitoring systems, with much more efficient and quality-driven education programs, with much better access to information of all kinds as a citizen for information, etc., etc. So there is an enormous amount of benefit that the people of the Western Cape can derive from this.
Thank you. We move on to the third question. Honourable Botha. Honourable Blanche, you are disturbing the House now with all your comments all the time. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Premier, can you tell this House, in terms of this service delivery protest that we almost endure on a weekly basis in the province, how does it impact on services of this government to our communities?
That is a good question. And it is really very profound. For example, in Clan William, we had a lot of violence and unrest because of objections to migrant workers from Lesotho. So that drove those processes there. Now, of course, migrant labor and border control has got absolutely nothing to do with provincial government mandates. So because of the national government's failures in that regard, the entire community of Clan William has to suffer. Then we saw the taxis bringing Cape Town to a standstill with a lot of violence, primarily over their own internal contest for leadership of Santaka. Now that is completely outrageous that an internal conflict in the taxi association can disrupt the entire city. Then, the other thing was that the taxi associations were protesting the impoundment of taxis. Now, if taxis are not roadworthy, and if they break the law, we have to take action. Otherwise, people are going to die on the roads in large numbers. And we have to enforce the rule of law, which we will continue doing. In Hout Bay, there was a massive protest around the abuse of fishing quotas to disempower local communities by the national government once again. In George, there was a protest about access to housing, and it was inflamed by local elements. So and in Claremont, there was a massive uprising because a tender was not re-awarded to one of the residents of the area there. So all of these things are issues that massively disrupt people's lives. But more than that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they put people off from investing. When you go abroad, people say, we can't come and invest in the Western Cape because every second day you're on television with people burning and looting and throwing things and disrupting. And while there are all sorts of other places in the world where we can invest safely and securely and won't have a problem with a corrupt government and with looting and criminality, they'd much rather go there. That creates a massive, unquantifiable problem for this country and for this province.
Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Premier, in this province we have lived through the project Reclaim by the opposition. Would you say then, in terms of this protest that we are reliving, that some of these protests seem to be politically driven, with the opposition trying to destabilize this province?
My honest answer to that question is that I can't answer it with certainty either way.
Order, Honourable Dugmore.
I have read reports on this.
What sort of trouble is that? A threat?
Order.
Is that a threat?
Order. Honourable Gaka, I want the Premier to give you the freedom to respond to that question. Premier, you may proceed.
I haven't done direct evidence gathering, but all I can say is that I wouldn't be surprised.
We are then moving to the next question. Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Since it came to light last week that a taxi strike by 148 associations could come to the Cape this week, can the Honourable Premier indicate to us what she, as the Premier, has done to prevent the destruction and disruption of workers and school learners, costing the province millions of rands?
Order, Premier, if you want to respond to that.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the National Police has primary responsibility for crime prevention. And when you are disrupting people's lives and preventing them from going to school, which is compulsory, and preventing them from the right to earn a living, you are committing a criminal act. And the fundamental failure of the National Ministry of Police, A, to allocate sufficient resources to the Western Cape, which is now a subject of a constitutional court case, and B, the extreme inefficacy of police in certain areas to the point that many of the guns that gangsters and criminals use actually emanate from the police is a source of very grave concern. The police have 22,000 members in the Western Cape, and I would like to ask them what they are doing to prevent criminals from disrupting other people's lives who are trying to get about their business in a law-abiding way.
Order, order. Honourable Lecker.
Thank you. I'm obviously not surprised by the lack of response from the Premier. Shut up.
Hey, order, 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 order. Order, Member Lecker.
I draw check.
That is not parliamentary, thank you.
I'm not surprised by the response from the Premier for one reason. She's always taking a tour to Pretoria when she's supposed to respond to issues that are affecting this
Member
province.
Lecker, could get to your question. But in a concise form.
My question, Deputy Speaker, would be, did the Premier instruct the MEC for Transport to do anything to avert the chaos in her absence? Because she is forever out of the province in any case.
Premier.
I was in touch with Minister Grant and Acting Premier Windy on a consistent basis around this crisis. And I am confident that Minister Grant did whatever was possible in the situation. And I also know that his intervention with mediation played a pivotal role in bringing this crisis to an end after one day. Otherwise, it would have been a whole lot longer.
Honourable Lecker, your last opportunity.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Obviously, the response by the MEC relevant was a few hours too late, as this already put a cost to workers as well as to the economy of the province. And my question would be, what steps will be implemented by her government to stop another bad and violent strike from taking place?
Premier.
When I hear the kinds of questions posed by the Honourable Lecker, it seems to me as if she thinks that we perpetrated the violence and criminality. But that is the assumption, because we are almost getting blamed for it. Find the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is a complete lack of respect for the rule of law, and from working through grievances through proper structures and processes. This is a crisis for the whole of South Africa. We have a culture when people don't get what they want to simply intervene in the rights of other people to force their case. So when people are arguing about housing, they threaten to burn down the school. And then they want to burn down the hospital when they've got another problem. And that is where the phrase, "you're cutting off your nose to spite your face," comes from. It would help very much, Deputy Speaker, if the Honourable the Opposition would make a clarion public call to the taxis to deal with their problems through the proper channels and abide by the rule of law. I have never once heard them doing that. Secondly, I think it would be very useful. Secondly, I think it would be very useful for us to have a top-level meeting with the police and ask them to send reinforcements to deal with this particular problem. And the Honourable Lecker asked in the intervention, what are my people doing? It would be very useful for the Honourable Lecker to read the Constitution and understand who has what mandate. Because on every area where this province is in trouble, it's because there's a national mandate that isn't being fulfilled. Whether it's fishing quotas, whether it's law and order, whatever the national government is responsible for fails. And we have to deal with the consequences.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of questions to the Premier. We move on to statements. I first see the DA. I'm trying to see the DA. Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much. Deputy Speaker, it goes without saying that the provision of housing is a real priority for the DA in the Western Cape. This is not just a thumb-sucking statement, but one that can be backed up by facts. Allow me to delve right into the facts which shows our success. During the 2014-15 financial year, our aim was to deliver 10,357 houses. We delivered 10,746. During the 2015-16 financial year, our aim was to deliver 10,840 houses. We delivered 11,640. During the 2016-17 financial year, our aim was to deliver 11,134. We delivered 11,283. Deputy Speaker, our vision is to ensure that residents have access to livable, accessible, safe, resilient, multi-opportunity settlements. With us clearly exceeding our targets over the last 3 years, we have once again demonstrated our commitment to giving deserving and qualifying residents an opportunity to improve their lives. I can only imagine what we would be able to achieve if a larger budget allocation were made to the Western Cape. The DA will continue to forge ahead and is committed to fulfilling its mission of creating integrated and sustainable communities which every single resident can enjoy and be proud of. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The ANC. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In the West, disaster drought, severe water usage restrictions, the closing down of springs and streams, as well as the approaching day zero, when we run out of water for places like Beaufort West, Canaland, and Knysna, the DA still runs away from reality. We are told to pray for rain. Promises were made of alternatives. What do we see? Dololo. Some DA leaders say the Cape will not run dry. One of them quoted is the Honourable Premier Helen Zille. She is now widely quoted after her official home's water use was revealed by the Honourable Public Works MEC Donald Grant last week. She attacked all, including the reputations of reporters and publications, to save face for her elaborate use of 3 sources: a well-point borehole, a newly added water purifier in a stream on the estate at the expense of 93,000 to the taxpayer, and of course, metered municipal supply of potable water through 3 connections. Her explanations are confusing and incoherent. No wonder she does not appoint the promised Environmental Commission that would check on her use. But the lady protests too much. She must stop whining, lead by example, and not excess. I thank you.
The DA. Honourable Kividu.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Deputy Speaker, we recognize that poverty is a primary obstacle to living a full life for many people living within the province, and our government remains committed to addressing this untenable situation. A major catalyst, if not the most important catalyst to addressing poverty in all societies, is a need for major investment into the education of one's citizenry, both young and old, both poor and rich. Deputy Speaker, there is a core philosophy guiding the DA-led government's policies and programs. It is based on a holistic approach taken by several other countries that have successfully reduced mass poverty. In order to facilitate such progress, education continues to remain one of the vehicles for improving the lives of people in our province, especially those poorer communities that are in the greatest need. Honourable Speaker, our Honourable Deputy Speaker, our Provincial Minister announced early this year that over a third of the provincial budget was dedicated to education, over 20 billion rand to be exact. The vast majority of the educational budget has been dedicated to improving the lives of those with the greatest need. Honourable Deputy Speaker, our government is already ensuring that 478,144 of our poorest learners receive not just one, but 2 nutritious meals at 1,010 schools every day. In addition, Deputy Speaker, several initiatives have been undertaken as a measure to eliminate the problems of transportation experienced by rural learners and as a mechanism to alleviate the challenges faced by learners who have to potentially walk long distances. My last sentence, thanks, Deputy. In spite of budgetary constraints faced by the WCD, I must commend them for their continuous dedication to improving the lives of all of those learners in our province, especially those living in poor communities.
Thank you, Member. A rather long last sentence, but it's done. I see the DA again. The EFF is not here. I see the DA. I see the DA, Honourable Schaefer.
No. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. According to the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, South Africa's economy lags behind those of its BRICS counterparts. This is partly due to our country's severe lack of thriving informal economy, where unskilled and previously disadvantaged citizens can become economically self-sufficient by making a living using the informal skills or trades they possess. In a country like South Africa, where the legacy of apartheid's education system has left many without a formal education, this could be key to providing millions with an opportunity to lift themselves out of poverty. India and Brazil's jobs in the informal sector currently sit at 50% of total employment, with Indonesia's informal sector making up 3/4 of its employment figures. It is worrying to see that only 15% of South Africa's jobs lie in the informal sector, in stark comparison. Our socioeconomic circumstances are not much different from these countries, yet where they have capitalized on their informal economy, we continue to stagnate. In a place of a dedicated program to empower citizens to make use of their informal skills and trades in our country's economy, we give them a social grant affording them the bare minimum as they scrape the poverty line. While our welfare system is crucial, it cannot foster an unending cycle of poverty and economic stagnation. We must be economically innovative and provide opportunity for our informal economy and the millions of citizens it can support to flourish. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC, Honourable Mugaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We are pleased to have been joined by the Premier, who is always absent in the legislature. She might have rushed out as to some... Don't disturb me. She might be rushed off to attend to many troubles the DA encounters, or even hurried to Leeuwenhof to check on her official home's water consumption. I am sure we'll soon read of it somewhere. With the Honourable zeal, one never knows. She might again be captivated by the Guptas to entertain them at a cricket match, or once more travel to Saxon World or Dubai to visit the Guptas, feast on fine food, and collect a hefty donation for her party. The DA's war in Hangberg continues with more casualties after rubber bullet shooting. We are mindful of the fact that Honourable Matigizela is busy looking for some vacant land far away from that place which belonged to white people. The province burns with the uprising from Kleinmond to Danune. The DA continue to clamp down and close down democracy for the opposition in this legislature. Watch the space using its military chief whip, who is totally displaced in this legislature. It is all done to deflect attention away from the DA's infights and faction. We saw just how divided the DA really is this weekend with the metro election, where the party split right down the middle. The DA is bad for the Western Cape. We don't need it.
The DA, Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's a known fact that your ability to read and write can open many doors for you. In fact, this ability goes a long way in helping you to communicate effectively. Earlier this month, we commemorated National Book Week and International Literacy Day. And this reminded me of the important role our libraries play throughout the Western Cape. It is here I'd like to commend the DA-led Western Cape Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport, where since the 2013-14 financial year, opened 13 new libraries, increasing the number from 353 to 369 across the province. This is a clear demonstration of how committed we are in ensuring that our residents have access to books, information, and all sorts of reading material. Notwithstanding the access to internet, we also have our broadband project that's being rolled out across this province, as the Premier earlier alluded to. Deputy Speaker, I am further pleased to note the remarkable strides we have made in combating illiteracy. Stats SA General Household Survey, which was released in May this year, tells us 98% of the residents in the Western Cape are literate. We need to ensure that more and more residents have access to our libraries, because not only will this help our people to improve their reading and writing, but it will instill a love for reading, which in turn will empower our residents. Knowledge is power. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it is clear that the inability of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, as led by Premier Zille and MEC Madikizela, to work in a cooperative way to deal with the problems, in particular the safety and security problems affecting, amongst others, the taxi industry, is ensuring that solutions are not being found and that rather short-term political gain is the order of the day. It is clear that all of us believe that enough is enough when it comes to the violence surrounding the taxi strike, but we also believe that enough is enough when it comes to the disruption by a small group of students of institutions of higher learning, such as the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. So yes, we need to say enough is a must, but we could be doing so much more if the attitude of Premier Zille and the leader of the DA at the moment, and I want to stress that, at the moment, MEC Madikizela, would be more cooperative. Because at the end of the day, we are sitting here as opposition, the DA and others are sitting as opposition in the National Assembly. But we really need to deal with these particular problems. And we need to ask the question whether MEC Grant and his department could not have done more to anticipate and avoid this strike. The role of the City of Cape Town also needs to be considered, because the information we have received is that the City Police only responded, despite requests from Golden Arrow and others, once a My City bus was actually burnt out on the N2 and not before. So it is not good enough, Deputy Speaker, to simply blame, as much as they are real, the internal divisions in the taxi industry. It is not good enough to simply blame that. We need to be more proactive and deal with these issues systematically and in a cooperative way, not in a blame and complain way. We know that there was the Sebeza Commission, and we welcome the fact that there will be a new Commission of Inquiry which must ask hard questions of all role players. But enough is enough, and we need to ensure that this never happens again.
Time's expired. I see the DA. I see the DA. Is there a last person from the DA side? Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the eviction of the coloured community from the Simonstown from Simonstown to Ocean View. It was called Slunkop in those days. At any other time, this would be the most desirable place to live. Balmy climate, extraordinary views of the Atlantic Ocean, fringed by endless Nordic beach. But this idyllic setting has not been matched by reality. Just last week, we debated the influence of armed gangs in our city communities. Ocean View featured prominently in the debate, not just because some of the long-suffering residents of Ocean View were in the gallery, but because it is currently in a state of crisis. 41 murders in 12 months. And that does not count the 3 murders committed since we had the debate last Thursday. How did this tragedy come about? As residents in Simonstown, they were peaceful and full members of that community, artisans, fisherfolk and merchants. The photos of that time show proud members of sports clubs, church choirs and generally family men and women at peace with life. My experience with them is that they remain good people, but their circumstances have changed. Over and above the disastrous effects of the totally unwarranted and inhuman act perpetrated by the government at the time, there have been other factors that have negatively impacted on this community. As traditional fisherfolk, the ongoing denial of ready access to the sea by the ANC government is like denying a farmer access to his land. The insistence of the ANC government to apply national demographics to the recruitment in the Navy has denied many thousands of coastal citizens who understand the sea from careers in that service, and more importantly, from earning a skills trade in the dockyard workshops. Remember, both these employment opportunities were at their doorstep before. As a result, unemployment is very high and a refuge in drugs and alcohol is rife. Gangs exploit this opportunity, not least because Ocean View is geographically isolated in the South Peninsula, where services are often headquartered over the mountain. The state of policing is totally unacceptable. Now, on the anniversary of this sad chapter, this community has had enough, and we can pray that this justified anger does not lead to another tragic date for the community in the future to remember in years to come.
Thank you, Member. That brings us to the end of statements. We move on to notices of motion. Are there any motions where notice is given? I see the Honourable Janchi.
That the House knows that taxpayers in the Eden municipality will fork out more than 100,000 for an overseas trip to Sweden, led by dear Mayor Memory Boyson, and calls for an investigation into all international trips by Western Cape municipalities as they try to emulate Premier Zile's overseas junkets.
Notice is taken of that. Are there any more? Honourable Kividu.
Thank you, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, Deputy Speaker, I move that the House debates efforts and initiatives to stimulate, generate, intensify, expand, and implement, and to embrace and inculcate cultural diversity and foster social cohesion and nation building in the Western Cape. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. Notice taken. Honourable Lekker.
That the House debates the bad state and effectiveness of the Western Cape government's youth care facilities where drug addicts and awaiting trial juveniles are housed. I so move.
Notice is taken of that. Are there any more? Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House debates the effectiveness of Cape Town's short spotter devices as well as other ineffective strategies to fight gangs and crime in the province. I so move.
Thank you. Notice is taken of that. Honourable Lekker.
That the House debates the eventual closure of Cape Town's Rogue Special Investigation Unit established with other so-called specialist units under the Mayor Helen Zile's tenure.
Notice taken. Any more? Honourable Diana. Honourable Diana, do you want to move one? Honourable Janchi? Not. Then we move on to motions without notice, and I see Honourable Mitchell first, and then I'll come to the side.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House congratulate and commend Mina Jonkers from Central Karoo Athletics for winning Volunteer of the Year in the Western Cape Sports Awards 2017. It is a selfless It's selfless acts such as hers that build our communities and foster nation building and reconciliation through sport. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Jantji.
Passing on of ANC stalwart and former City of Cape Town Councillor of Ward 42, Vulisango Mfotile Kutsien Totoviane, Chief Chair, who died after a short illness and will be buried on the 30th September in the Eastern Cape, and conveys condolences to his wife, family, and comrades.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Mackenzie first, and then I'll come to Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes the resignation of Dr. Makosi Koza as a member of the ANC and a member of National Parliament, and referring to a former party as alien, corrupt, and unable to self-respect. We wish her well in future endeavour. It is clear that the ANC has no place for people with integrity, honesty, and a good value system.
Any objections? There are objections. Will be printed in the order paper. I'll see the Honourable Gaka, and then I'll come to side.
Motion without notice. I move that the House condemns the office of the Premier's continued disrespect and intimidation of journalists who are doing their work by reporting facts without fear or favour. This after the Times reporter was vilified on Twitter by Premier Zille's Chief of Staff for reporting that the taxpayers forked out 90,000 for Zille's water purifier at her house, and called for measures put in place to ensure media freedom in the province.
Any objection to that motion be moved without notice? Are there objections? I can't see. Is there objection? There is no objection. It will be printed on order paper. I see the Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that KPMG has severely been compromised by their conduct and relationship within the alleged corrupt private and state departments and entities. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Inanna first.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that this House congratulates the Democratic Alliance for holding peaceful, successful, and democratic Metro Congress elections last Saturday. So I move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No. Is there an objection? There is an objection. It will be printed in the order paper. Honourable Lekker.
Enkosi Somlomo. Ndiphakamela ukubana lendlu inika ingqwalasela yokuba umbutho wesizwe uthe waphumelela ngomyinge ongoma-71 wevoti kuvalo zikhewu ebelukhona izolo. Kwakhona nditsho okokubana umbutho iDA ithe yabonakala inkxaso yayo ihle kakhulu nanjengoko ibicinga ukuba izaba njalo ngokomgaqo owenziweyo ngengcaciso yakwa-Ipsos Market Research.
Is there an objection to the motion being moved? There's an objection. Will be printed in the order paper. Honourable Schaefer, and then I'll come to Simmers.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That this House congratulate and commend Mr. David Green, CEO of the V&A Waterfront, visionary behind the Zeit Marker Museum of Contemporary Art. The museum is the continent's first dedicated museum for contemporary African art and a welcome addition to the City of Cape Town's tourism and investment portfolio.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion. Is there an objection? No objection. There's an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. I see the Honourable Simmers.
Sorry. Speaker, I move without notice that the House congratulates Eden Sport for winning the following 6 categories at the recently held Western Cape Sports Awards ceremony. Firstly, for Eden Cycling, they were the Sports Federation of the Year. Secondly, Christopher Mark for being the Sports Journalist of the Year. Thirdly, Gerard Jooste, who was the Sport Photographer of the Year. Then the Christelike Jeugforum from Oudtshoorn, they were the Recreational Society of the Year. Then Krati, who is the Traditional Sport Team of the Year. And lastly but not least, the Heidelberg Primary School's cross-country team, who were the Developmental School Sport Team of the Year. I so move.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that this House congratulate and commend Dantrich Delano Boysen, the mod coach at Maskam Primary School in Van Reinsdorp, for winning an an after-school sport coaching excellence award at the Western Cape Sport Awards 2017. His services are vital to the development and upliftment of our province's youth through sport and absolutely worthy of such an accolade. I so move.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Doug Moore first.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes that despite public promises by both Premier Zille and Mayor de Lille, that of course was before their bitter fight, that the Greenpoint Athletic Stadium would be renamed after the Olympic champion Wade van Niekerk, that it will no longer happen as the city will only erect a so-called Heroes Wall to bear the names of South African Olympians, and calls for another method to honor our heroes such as Wade van Niekerk and Luvo Mayonga. I so move.
Are there any objections to that motion being moved without notice? No objection. Is there an objection? Will be printed in the order paper. Honourable Simmers first, and I'll come back to this one.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House congratulates the SWD female rugby team for being crowned the champions of the B League after they won the Golden Lions 23-8 in the Interprovincial Tournament final. I so move.
Thank you. No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House knows the Times newspaper today took a position against the Honourable Premier Zille's office staff, defaming and she attacking the reporter who wrote of her water consumption at Luenhof. Also notes it is described as her more natural demeanor exemplified after her ill-advised colonialism tweet, an allegation of putting pressure on officials to help her son's business. Also notes the paper says she behaved like that of other thin-skinned occupier of a state-owned mansion, Donald Trump, and further notes that she, like Trump, insists on being a slow learner when it comes
Order, Member Gamba. Just 1 second, Honourable Chief Whip.
This is not a motion without notice. This is a statement.
I cannot comment whether it's a statement or a motion. It might be in the form of a motion, so I will allow the member to continue.
Thank you. Also knows that the paper says she behaves like that of other thin-skinned occupier of state-owned mansion, Donald Trump, and further knows that she, like Trump, insists on being a slow learner when it comes to handling real and perceived criticism. Thank you.
Any objection to that? There is an objection. It will be printed in the order paper. Can I just order? Can I just say that's in reply to the Chief Whip? There's no real length limitation to a motion as long as it's in the format of a motion. So that is why I allowed that one. Honourable Diana.
Aye. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House notes that the ANC over months called the water crisis a self-fabricated catastrophe as the DA-led administration failed to spend its budget on improving water infrastructure for more than a decade. Notes further that the city of Cape Town is now set to spend 8 billion rand over the next 10 years, mostly on its funders. I so move.
There's an objection, it seems, that will be printed on the order paper. Are there any more? Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House pay respect and send its condolences to the family and friends of Umkhonto Wesizwe Commander, Comrade Mxolisi Phethani, who passed on earlier this morning in the military hospital in Pretoria. May his soul rest in peace.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy, that this House congratulate and commend the Chaley Sport and Recreation Club for having won the award for Community Builder of the Year in the Western Cape Sport Awards. I so move.
I take it there's no objection to that motion without notice. Also no objection to the motion itself. The motion is agreed to. I see the Honourable Olivier first.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House notes and commends next to Maheu, who won the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon over the past weekend, crossing the finish line in 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 1 second. I so move.
I take it there's no objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Diana.
Deputy Speaker, that the House expresses its concern for the badly planned and poorly attended public hearings which do not properly involve the participation of communities, as seen this week in George with a discussion on housing matters. I so move.
Any objection? There's an objection to that motion. It will be printed on the order paper. Are there any further? Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that the deeply divided DA's MPL Leonard Max accepted nomination and will stand against MEC Matikizela for the position of their party's provincial leadership on October 7.
Is there an objection to that? There is an objection to that motion. Will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Lekker.
Enkosi Sekela Somlomo, I move that the House notes the landmark ruling by the Western Cape High Court in which the Wills Act was declared inconsistent with the Constitution as it only recognizes legal unions and not Muslim marriages and welcomes the guidance.
Is there any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Are there any further? Honourable Olivier.
Sekela Somlomo, I move that this House notes the 2 provincial schools were burned in less than a week, with first school in Ravensmead last week, as well as an arson at Tembalete Secondary over the weekend. Calls for an in-depth investigation into the causes of the fire and commends the community and firefighters' swift response to quell this fire.
Are there any objections to that motion being moved without notice? There's no objection to the motion itself. Also no objection. Agreed to. Are there any further? Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to move without notice that this House unequivocally condemns the utter lawlessness displayed by certain taxi associations and drivers during the strike on Monday, in which some individuals attacked other modes of transport, injuring innocent passengers and vandalizing property, and notes further that what we witnessed on Monday could have been avoided if MEC Grant had been more proactive and worked more closely with both the national and local government.
Is there an objection? There is an objection to the motion being moved without notice. The motion will be printed in the order paper. Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House congratulates Parkfield's primary learners in Hanover Park, Salama, Jomadine, Tammy, Goliath, Tasmin, Isaac, who won the spelling bee competition despite coming from gang-ridden communities which made it difficult for them to practice. I so move.
Any objections to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House calls for an urgent intervention to ensure that people's lives are saved at the province's level rail crossings after we witnessed that 10 people were injured when a train and diesel tanker collided with a trailer near Muldersvlei crossing yesterday morning. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, I call for support of this motion that this House notes that the parents and learners at Parkersdorp School are up in arms after a teacher over the weekend called a grade 11 learner and his friend the K-word for singing isiXhosa at a rugby match against George, condemns this teacher's action and call for immediate investigation of this incident by this House. I so move.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Are there any further? Honourable Olivier, you seem to have the floor now.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, for the floor. I move, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, that this House notes and commends Mignan van Zyl over Karate, who won the Junior Sportswoman of the Year at the recent held 2017 Western Cape Sports Award wishing her all the best in a bright future ahead. So move.
I take it there's no objection to that motion being moved without notice, and also no objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Olivier, you still on the floor?
I'm still on the floor,
Thank
Deputy
you.
Speaker. Speaker, I move that the House notes and commends Johan van Zyl from the Overberg Karate, who won the Administrator of the Year at the recent 2017 Western Cape Sports Award, acknowledging the other 5 nominees in this category. So I so move.
No objection to that motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Olivier.
That was the last speech.
Are there any further notices from the rest of the House? If not, then that brings us to the end of that portion, and we move on to the order paper, and I'll ask the Secretary to read the order of the day.
Of the reports of the Conduct Committee dated 28 October 2016 and 30th November 2016, respectively.
Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on the motion.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this particular report indicates the outcome of a very thorough and detailed process in regard to the breach of the Code of Conduct. And I think it's very important for us to note that one of the problems that we are dealing with in terms of being able to act without fear or favor in regard to any member who is alleged to have breached the Code of Conduct is to ensure that we actually act with impartiality. For instance, an example I would like to cite is the fact that despite the fact that our Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works has essentially been disrupted twice by the Chief Whip, and I have laid a complaint that there has been no follow-up in regard to prosecuting that matter. And when we come to a matter such as the breach of the Code of Conduct, which is before us today, essentially, Deputy Speaker, I think we can actually see that what is at play here are clear and deep divisions within the Democratic Alliance. Because we also have a situation where the very registrar mentioned in this report.
Order. Before I see the Honourable Mugaka, can I just say to the member Dugmore, you must limit your speech to the contents of the report, and I think you're going too wide now, out of the scope. Honourable Mugaka, I hear you.
Yes, I just want to ask Deputy Speaker if it's parliamentary for the Premier to say Honourable Dugmore is lying. Don't lie.
I did not hear that, but if the Premier did say that to a member of the House, then certainly that is on a parliamentary Premier. Did you say that?
Say what the Honourable Magaka says. I said, what a lie.
Yeah, okay. I accept. No, it's not the same. It's a general comment about not to address to a specific member.
Can you investigate, if I can address you there, can you investigate whether she was directed?
I will check inside as
well.
well.
She said that while she was,
Yes,
while he was on the floor.
Order. I will do that, and if necessary, come back to the House. Thank you. Honourable Dugmore, you may continue.
Thank you. So as this report reflects, Deputy Speaker, the decision reflected at the end of this report, in other words, that the committee resolved by majority to recommend that a penalty in terms of clause 32(1), in other words, a reprimand, be imposed on Member Davids. This was the result of a detailed discussion and represents the clear majority view of the committee. And I think one of the important things, Deputy Speaker, which was taken into account is the issue of precedent. Honourable Davids is a first-time member of this legislature. We know, and the record reflects, that she actually approached the Speaker in regard to issues relating to her constituency allowance, and actually requested help from the Speaker in regard, and we know that there's a precedent in the sense that Honourable Member Josephs, who is sitting in this House today, also talked out of turn and went to the media concerning another matter that the Code of Conduct Committee was dealt with. And in that regard, Honourable Member Josephs, and that was agreed to by this side of the House, was reprimanded for something which essentially could have brought the very integrity of the process into account. And it was those arguments which eventually resulted in this particular recommendation of a reprimand. I think it's important, Deputy Speaker, that we honour and we respect the process that was followed, respect the decision that was taken, and it would be a very, very serious issue if this House began then to question a process which involved different political parties, and it would simply add to a perception that there is ongoing manipulation in regard to a very important institution, which is the Code of Conduct Committee, in terms of how we deal with these matters. And I do not think that we should allow this House to undermine its processes because of internal party political divisions which beset the DA at this point in time. So from our side, from this side of the House, we would welcome this report and support that not only is this report considered, but that its contents are adopted as reported by the committee. Thank you.
I see the Honourable Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It is interesting that Honourable Dugmore is the proponent on behalf of the ANC when neither of their members who serve on the committee are making this proposal on their behalf. Mr. Dugmore does not even sit on the committee, so how he knows about what the workings of that committee are very strange. However, be that as it may, on the 28th of October 2016, this House tabled a Conduct Committee report relating to this matter. Its recommendation was that Member Davids be reprimanded by this House. On the 30th of November 2016, the Registrar's report for the period 1st of December 2015 till a year later, the 31st of October, was tabled. It makes for interesting reading, particularly the part relating to case 3/2015, the case relating to Member Davids. What strikes one immediately is the apparently light sanction voted on by the committee, a reprimand. Secondly, given the repeated transgressions involving the false claims of public monies, how was it possible that the committee was confronted with hearing a charge described in the Members' Code of Conduct under Clause 2, 4B, as failure to exercise due diligence in the performance of your official duties? The reasons and lessons learned from this exercise are instructive. This House must remember that we as members are not necessarily qualified in the various tasks and committees that we are asked to serve on in the democratic institutions and the executives of different spheres of government. For example, it does not follow that the Minister of Defence has to be an experienced in soldiering, or the Minister of Finance an economist or financier or an accountant. Similarly, in our world here in the legislature, we do not have to have any specific expertise to sit on or chair a committee. This is typical in any democratic institution around the world where people elect chosen public representatives irrespective of their qualifications. It is for this very reason, over time, the very legislative and government institutions that we serve have developed a core of professional staff to run these institutions and departments that, for the periodically elected public representatives notwithstanding, the professional staff underpinning will ensure that the institution will continue to deliver service to the province, to the populace. This they do within the framework of laws and regulations. In the case of the Conduct Committee of this Parliament, a specific mechanism was created to ensure that, in the sometimes sensitive matters of members' affairs, they are given expert advice by a suitably qualified person. This person is called the Registrar of Members' Affairs, a post described in law. In the case of Member Davids, the alleged transgression was of such a serious nature that the Speaker of this very institution lodged the complaint with full dossier of supporting evidence. In essence, that Member Davids, over an extended period of time, had repeatedly claimed for travel expenses from Parliament to which she was not entitled. By example, an amount of over 80,000 rand was claimed within a few months. This was claimed as part of Member Davids' alleged servicing of a constituency. Her allowance was tapped out, prompting her to approach the Speaker how she could get more money. The Speaker immediately initiated an investigation, as her members' allowances of this House are fairly generous. In the complaint by the Speaker, and admitted to by Member Davids, claims were made of travel to a constituency in the north end of the province, while in fact the member was elsewhere on parliamentary oversight work. This was shown in evidence by signed attendance registers on more than one occasion. Additionally, during the preliminary investigation, the manager of WCPP's HR gave the committee a background as to how that section gave advice and support in how to properly and legally claim travel expenses, especially to the members on the other side, the ANC. In this case of Member Davids, it was specifically brought to the committee's attention that she, her chief whip, that's Member Davids, her chief whip and staff were advised and in some cases warned of the administrative processes and seriousness of overclaiming. All members upon induction are in any case advised of this process. Yet, despite the registrar issuing a damning report based on his preliminary investigation, he inexplicably formulated, in his capacity as the prosecutor of the charges, a lesser charge that one would have expected. Even more bizarre was that when it came to the hearing itself, there was a reluctance to call witnesses. That the chief complainant, the Speaker, was more than willing to give her side of the story, and the committee had to insist that she gave her evidence. She was adamant that a case of prima facie fraud had been committed. The manager of the HR was simply not called to repeat her earlier evidence in the preliminary investigation. Member Davids declined to give evidence in person and relied on Member Dugmore to lead her defence. It is interesting that the ANC members on the committee are not participating today. It was left to the committee to deliberate on the only limited evidence before it and a lesser charge of what one would expect. The Secretary of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament has subsequently laid a charge of fraud against Member Davids with the South African Police Service, case 1061/17. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, this House is now tasked with the unpalatable truth that, in its deliberations, it has erred on several levels. We, and I include both members and WCPP staff, have not served justice in this case. As members, we have meant to be honourable and should ensure that, irrespective of our political affiliation, we have to defend the integrity of the institution. The public must know that members are not held to a different standard. The committee is the linchpin of upholding the honour of its members. It is for that reason, and for the first opportunity, I moved a motion to have the Conduct Committee deliberations held in open session in future, and thereby let the public draw their own conclusions on the deliberations of this institution. Regrettably, it has been shown in recent months this effort in transparency has been grossly...
Order.
Regrettably, it has been shown in recent months that this effort in transparency has been grossly abused, and the media have, inter alia, with less than honourable motives of their own, allowed rights of natural justice of other members to be abused. This House, in coming months, when it deliberates upon its rules changes, will have to take these matters into account. A balance has to be found that protects both the rights of the individual as well as demonstrates open and accountable actions. Deputy Speaker, I move the following resolution in my name. I propose that the House exercises its power in terms of Clause 33, brackets 2, brackets B, of the Code of Conduct of Members for the Western Cape Provincial Parliament to refer the matter in terms of the recommended penalty back to the committee for further consideration.
Order. That concludes the debate on these two reports. The member... Order. Member Wiley has made a proposal that in terms of the code, the matter be referred back to the committee for further consideration, which means the penalty. I then put the proposal to the House. Those in favour of the proposal will say aye. Aye. Those against, no. I think the ayes have it. And the dissension of the ANC will be recorded. That brings us then to the end of the business of the day. The House is adjourned.